Chapter 892. It was a white egg? How did he do that? Expressions of incredulity appeared on the faces of countless immortals. This didn't feel like a cooking show. Instead, it felt like a magic show. Unlin used cabbage, eggs, and chicken to make an egg. What a joke. However, in the next instant, Emperor Qinghua's expression suddenly became serious. Wait, this white eggshell is made from a mixture of eggshell and cabbage. Gotcha! A crack suddenly appeared on the pristine white eggshell. A refreshing and vibrant aura erupted forth, and it was as if there was a miniature sun within the eggshell as boundless golden light erupted from the crack. All of the immortals looked on with bated breath, as if they were witnessing a miracle. Boom! The top half of the eggshell suddenly exploded, immediately following which a crisp, pleasant cry erupted. A golden flaming phoenix broke through the eggshell and flew into the sky. Scorching, dazzling wings, a pair of vibrant eyes, and an aura that was imbued with vitality, all of the immortals were dumbstruck. A celestial court disciple made a mistake and created a true phoenix? F*CK. What a joke. This was way too King fantastical. This didn't make any sense. However, all of this was happening right before their eyes. A faint smile appeared on Enlin's face. He had expended a lot of effort in order to create this phoenix. The power of the mutant blood phoenix within his body had played a major role, and of course, the flaming vermilion bird had also played a significant role. This was the life of the mutant blood phoenix. The phoenix danced through the heavens as it sang a heavenly song. Everyone's attention was drawn to this peculiar scene. The phoenix's body grew larger and larger, and at its peak, its flames were as scorching as the sun, eclipsing the sun in the sky. However, just as the heavenly Tao revolved around reincarnation, so did life. After the most dazzling moment, fireworks would gradually dim before finally disappearing. The phoenix's body slowly shrank, and its flames also began to dim and wither. It began to wail with grief and resistance, as if it were struggling and unyielding on the path of Tao, and it didn't want to walk toward death like this. However, this world was cruel. The phoenix could only struggle and decline. In the end, it turned into ashes and disappeared. When the immortals of the celestial court saw the phoenix's birth, glory, and final fall, a certain chord in their hearts was tugged, especially the phoenix's resentful wail before its death, which struck them like a heavy hammer. Were they not phoenixes on the path of seeking? After the peak of glory, there would be a day when the curtain would fall. No one could escape the erosion of time. Many immortals' eyes reddened, and some fairies even began to shed tears. Hu Jiahao's eyes widened and his body swayed slightly. He had lost. In terms of the concept of cooking Tao, he had completely lost. The dishes cooked by first-rate immortal chefs generally pursued the impact of the five senses and the divine soul. Most of them were gorgeous and beautiful, which can make people feel happy while eating. However, who would believe that a mere concept could make immortals cry? This was the only one in the world. This was no longer a King comparison on the same level. The simple display of artistic conception and the integration of one's comprehension of the path of seeking the Tao were like a cheesy comedy film and an artistic film with a deep meaning. They were completely incomparable. Celestial maiden Ying Chao wiped away her tears. Mr. and Lin's cooking is so touching. Is this really a dish? I feel like I'm seeing my entire life. Woof. The howling celestial dog murmured as tears flowed from its eyes. Heroes grow old while beauties grow old. This is the power of time. No one can escape from it. This dish is far too tragic. Yulao shook his head and sighed with emotion, just as all of the immortals were sighing with emotion. Emperor Qinghua looked into the eggshell, where there was a chicken with its wings spread open. Sigh, a fallen phoenix is no match for a chicken. It was also at this moment that there seemed to be flames burning within the chicken. What's this? Emperor Qinghua's pupils contracted, and he was completely unable to remain calm. Countless immortals also turned toward the chicken. This was a chicken that seemed to have been reborn and was on fire. The heavenly Tao was cruel, but there was still a sliver of hope. The phoenix had fallen with an anguished cry, but it was still alive. Good, good, good. Emperor Qing Hua uttered the word good 3 times in a row with undisguised approval and envy on his face. Just this tiny phenomenon elevated the intent realm of the dish to a whole new level. An extremely alluring aroma began to waft through the air, making everyone salivate. This dish of mine is known as the death of the phoenix. Please have a taste, Emperor Qing Hua, and Lin said with a smile. Ha, then I won't hold back. Emperor Qing Hua picked up his chopsticks eagerly. He had only just tore off a piece of chicken with his chopsticks before placing it into his mouth, upon which the aroma instantly erupted. Emperor Qing Hua's body shuddered as a strange blush appeared on his face. So fragrant, so exciting, it was simply too delicious. The skin was crispy, and the insides were also extremely flavorful. It was as if they were a single entity. It was indescribably delicious. This type of meaty aroma was completely unheard of, and it was hard to believe that this was only a chicken. All of the immortals had scorching expressions on their faces. They had never felt such a strong desire to taste such a delicious dish before. All of them were filled with envy and jealousy as they stared at Emperor Qing Hua, who was gorging himself. They gritted their teeth, but there was nothing they could do. They really wanted to taste what this dish tasted like. After Emperor Qing Hua finished eating, he discovered that there was a small phoenix constructed from flames within the chicken. This phoenix seemed to be imbued with the intent of great freedom, and it had detached itself from its mortal body before disappearing from this world. Normal roasted meat is roasted from the outside to the inside, but Chef God and Lin's roasted chicken is roasted from the inside to the inside, so the phoenix inside must be the second source of fire. This is the first time I've seen this type of roasting method. It requires extremely fearsome control over fire to achieve such a harmonious cooking. It's quite clear that Lin has done this to perfection. After making his comments, Emperor Qing Hua turned toward the 2 people standing before him. All of the immortals, including Hu Jiahao and Lin, were getting a little nervous. They knew that it was time to announce the winner of this cooking contest. In terms of taste and the quality of the food, Lin and Hu Jiahao are evenly matched. However, in terms of culinary intent realm, Lin's performance this time is superior. Hence, the champion of this Chef God competition is Chef God and Lin. Emperor Qing Hua's voice reverberated throughout the entire heavenly altar. All of the immortals applauded in unison, and some of them were even whooping with joy. A hint of dejection and regret appeared on Chef God Hu Jiahao's face, and he heaved a faint sigh before also applauding. He had lost this competition. Boom, boom, boom. Dazzling divine light erupted from the 9 jade dragon pillars, which arced through the air before landing on Lin's body, making him appear as if he were a divine being. At that moment, he was blessed with glory and divine light. Lin had finally reached the pinnacle of cooking in the celestial court. Chapter 893. Just as everyone was cheering, the howling celestial dog silently made its way to Emperor Qing Hua's side. What are you doing? Emperor Qing Hua glared at the howling celestial dog. The howling celestial dog was currently in the form of a human with dog ears, and it recoiled slightly in the face of Emperor Qing Hua's glare. However, it soon began to drool as it looked at the dishes on the plate. Emperor, I think you shouldn't waste food. We need to be environmentally friendly. Emperor Qing Hua glanced at the 2 plates. How could he have left such delicious food unfinished? He was perplexed. What are you talking about? I've already eaten the dishes. The howling celestial dog pointed at the plate. There are still chicken bones left. If you don't want them, give them to me. He couldn't help but drool again as he spoke. Emperor Qing Hua. No. Why? If you don't want to eat them, why waste them? The howling celestial dog roared with grief and indignation. Emperor Qing Hua chuckled and flicked a finger, upon which the bones on the plate were reduced to nothingness. The howling celestial dog was dumbstruck again. He would rather destroy the bones than give them to him? What the hell was going on? What kind of vendetta was this? Emperor Qing Hua couldn't be bothered to pay him any heed. This B** star was going to eat the bones that he had licked. And Lin shot to fame after this battle. He had successfully slain a god under the witness of over 1,000 immortals. Countless immortals were still thinking back to the phenomenon that had just taken place and the delicious aroma wafting through the air. How great would it be if they could enjoy a meal like Emperor Qing Hua? At this moment, a faint smile appeared on Lin's face. My new dish, the Death of the Phoenix, will be officially released for sale at my restaurant tomorrow. If any of you are interested, you can come to my restaurant to try it. Boom. His words were like a bomb that instantly ignited the desires of all the immortals present. Ah, Mr. Lin is so understanding. I wanted to eat it, but I didn't think that I would get the chance to do so on the second day. Celestial Maiden Ning Chao's face was filled with excitement. I've already seen the dish that was able to defeat Chef God Hu Jiahao, but I haven't had a chance to interact with it. It looks like it's time to go to that restaurant again, Heavenly Monarch Zeng Guang said in an indifferent voice. The Death of the Phoenix tomorrow belongs to us 7 celestial maidens. No matter how high the price is, we will bid for it. The 7 prodigal women shouted in unison. Don't anyone snatch it from me. Otherwise, I'll cut off your marriage line. Yu Lao shouted. Then, the old man was beaten to a pulp by a group of immortals. And Lin looked at the immortals who had suddenly become enthusiastic, and a smug smile appeared on his face again. Hu Jiahao, on the other hand, had a look of realization on his face. So that's how it is. In the end, I'm the one who made him a success. Not only did I stabilize his godhead, but I also made his popularity soar. Maybe the price of his dishes will soar again. The god of cooking's mood was very complicated. He clearly wanted to suppress them, but why did it backfire? And Lin greeted all the immortals, and there was a wave of familiarity. They were potential customers. With so many fortune immortals around, they naturally had to treat them better. Customers are the god of fortune. Bah, it was God. These words were not said for nothing. After chatting for a while, Lin returned to the small attic and continued to study the new cuisine. Although he had achieved great results, he must not stop because of this. Only by innovating and continuously becoming stronger could he continue to climb to the peak. When Lin told Dabai, Su Xiaolan, and the others that he had won the God of Cooking competition, they were really shocked. Big brother, and the power of the frying pan is already so terrifying, it even defeated the God of Cooking, Woof. Dabai said in shock, It's me. I'm so terrifying. I'm too powerful. Do you understand? And Lin retorted very seriously. Then, a series of heartless echoes followed. Yes, 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 Big Brother is the best. Master's cooking is the best, and the dishes are the best. And Lin was very bored after hearing this, so he continued to cultivate his cooking skills. The next day was the 10th day of the Celestial Court's opening. His gourmet restaurant was overflowing with immortals, and the scene of the auction was unusually lively. The 7 celestial maidens were originally determined to get Lin's new dish, but they were forced back by the celestial Dharch who learned of the news. The celestial Dharch couldn't stand his 7 daughters giving money to another man like crazy. For Lin, this was not a problem at all, because his new dish, the Life of the Phoenix, was won by the 5 burly men of the 5-star lords at a high price of 500,000 spirit stones. Once the news came out, it caused another sensation in the celestial court. And Lin was like a celebrity, and he became the topic of many immortals in their leisure time. 500,000 spirit stones. One had to know that when Lin cooked other dishes, he would at least use expensive ingredients. However, for this dish, he used Dubai's vegetables, eggs, and other low-cost ingredients, which could be said to be a crazy profit. This was a way to make money that countless people were jealous of, but there was nothing they could do about it. The record that Lin had set himself was finally broken by himself 2 days later. Seeing the popularity of Lin's dish skyrocket again, some immortals who called for calm consumption didn't know what to say. They were all King crazy. Some immortals even specifically went to Lin's gourmet restaurant and asked expectantly and imploringly, Lin, Chef God, do you still want to accept disciples? Coach, I want to learn how to cook. And Lin's answer was, exclusive craftsmanship, not to be shared. Another day passed, and the popularity died down slightly. The final price was only 420,000 spirit stones. In other words, he had earned 410,000 spirit stones for nothing. The celestial Dharch finally heaved a sigh of relief and released the 7 celestial maidens. The next day, the price of Lin's Life of the Phoenix rose again, reaching 450,000 spirit stones. That's right, the 7 celestial maidens bid for it. The celestial Dharch. His daughters were so cute, and he couldn't bear to hit them. Should he just beat Lin to death? And Lin, of course, didn't care about the storm outside. He was so obsessed with cooking that he couldn't extricate himself. His name also became famous in the celestial court. People were always curious and wanted something new when they rose. And Lin defeated Hu Jiahao in the God of Cooking competition, which was his first peak as an immortal chef. That was also when his popularity reached its peak. However, after a period of time, the popularity would slowly die down. The final price of his Life of the Phoenix slowly fell in these 10 days, finally stabilizing at around 300,000 spirit stones. Some immortals gradually lost interest in the Life of the Phoenix and turned their attention to other cuisines. This didn't matter to Lin. It was just that the cost was a little higher. Occasionally, when there weren't any tycoons, it was sold for a low price of 100,000 or 200,000 spirit stones. But no matter what, it was better than selling stuffed buns. The adorable students of the United University of Cultivation missed Lin's Dubai so much that they signed a petition calling for Lin to come back and sell stuffed buns. When Lin was in a good mood, he would also come back to school to sell stuffed buns. All of the buns were sold out instantly, and he once again created a legend for the United University of Cultivation. Before he knew it, a month had passed. More than a month had passed since Chang Yi agreed to refine the divine pill, and Lin calculated the money he had earned from cooking. Not much, only 6 million. Too little. Chapter 894. If other immortals were to hear Lin's words, they would immediately go berserk and beat him up. I can't earn that much money even after working my entire life. And you're complaining that 6 million spirit stones a month is too little? Are you asking for a beating? However, the cultivation world was just like the mortal world in that the distribution of resources was extremely uneven. The resources available to the top-rate mighty figures and normal cultivators were on completely different levels. In the eyes of normal people, General Wang's target of 100 million spirit stones was extremely unrealistic and unrealistic. However, this amount of money was really just a small target for him. He was an honest man, so why did they have to turn him into a picture bag? Similarly, earning 6 million spirit stones in a month was not an exaggeration, but he really did feel like a failure. If that was the case, then he wouldn't be able to reach his target of 100 million spirit stones a month. The popularity of the chef god was slowly waning, and he might not even get as popular as he was in the past month. What could he do? A sense of urgency welled up in Lin's heart again. However, earning money was a matter of fate, and he couldn't think of any other way to earn a few million spirit stones a month. How about killing enemies and stealing their treasures? This was the fastest way that Lin knew of to earn money. However, the problem was that he had no enemies. He thought about it for a moment before dialing Lu Qianwan's voice transmission talisman. Hello, Lin. Why are you suddenly sending me a voice transmission? Lu Qianwan's cheerful voice sounded from the other end. Ahem. I just want to know about the development of our sect. Are there any evil sects that want to attack our sect? Lin was a little expectant. TSK. Our 4-9 immortal sect is renowned across the entire continent, and we've been blessed by the heavens. Even the Heavenly Sword sect isn't scared of us. So who would be so stupid as to come here and provoke us? Has there been any powerful devil sect or evil sect that has appeared recently? Recently, isn't the Heavenly Court reorganizing the 9 regions? There are 1 or 2 small fishes and shrimps. Which of the large demon sects isn't like a turtle hiding its head? Some even sent their disciples to do good deeds everywhere, eliminating evil and promoting good. In any case, the kingdom of the 9 states is a peaceful place. And Lin looked up into the sky with a dejected expression upon hearing Lu Qianhuan's words. Was it so hard to find a villain these days? He had no choice but to continue cooking to earn money. Actually, there are benefits to making money through cooking. It could actually complete the system's mission. Yes, the progress of the war, God Heaven Blasting Cannon mission had increased again. Make 10 mighty figures above the return to Void Stage fall in love with you, apart from their servants, based on brainwaves, divine sense fluctuations, and the system's calculations. Current mission progress is 10+/10. Yishi, Lin Junjun, Yanhua, Xiao Zhe, Tina, the J-Bone Immortal Butterfly, Dongfang Zhuangshi, Celestial Maiden He, Celestial Maidening Chao, Tai Yi the Enlightened. That's right, there were already many foodie returned to Void Stage mighty figures who had fallen in love with him because of his cooking. Perhaps, in order to conquer their hearts, one had to conquer their stomachs first, right? If he wanted to complete this mission, all he had to do was make the return to Void Stage mighty figures hate him. And Lin didn't want to attract hatred. So he put this aside for the time being and let fate take its course. When the time came, the mission would naturally be completed. The days passed by one after another. Before he knew it, it was time for the annual free-for-all battle. Thinking back, the system would issue him a mission every time he participated in the free-for-all battle. The chaotic alloy brick and the frying pan were both treasures that he had obtained from the lottery after completing the free-for-all battle mission. They didn't appear to be very useful at first glance, but they were terrifyingly useful treasures. This time was no exception, and Lin's system lit up as soon as he entered the forest of 1,000 peaks. His body trembled with excitement as he opened the system to see the contents of the mission. Detected that host has entered the forest of 1,000 peaks to commence the free-for-all battle. The following mission has been issued. Frowny Face obtained first place in the free-for-all battle and ascend to the top of the immortal rankings board. And Lin was ecstatic. This mission was a piece of cake for him. However, he was dumbstruck when he saw the mission rewards. Mission completed. Reward: 2 super delicious lollipops. Mission failed. Make the lollipops between host's legs disappear for 100 years. Lin, lollipops my A*S. Also, make the lollipops between host's legs disappear? Did the system have some kind of F**king misunderstanding about lollipops? Lin cursed in his heart. The system's rewards and punishments were completely different. He was going to file a complaint. Wait a minute. If they were equal, his eyes widened, and he suddenly thought of a possibility that made him shudder with fear. If the 2 lollipops on the system meant the same thing, then did that mean he would have 3 lollipops? And Lin drew a sharp intake of breath and shook his head violently. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. How could something like this happen? The 2 lollipops definitely meant different things. He shook off the complicated thoughts in his mind and began the free-for-all battle. Last year, due to the mission, I, the mighty little war god of the Celestial Court, didn't dare to make a move. As a result, I gained the nickname of Turtle and Bastard among the students. And Lin raised his head, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly as a fierce light flashed through his eyes. Now, I'm going to let all of you experience what it's like when I, and how, am truly unyielding. He had already made up his mind. He was going to use his true power to tell these students that it was time for Turtle and Bastard and to retire from the stage of history. And Lin didn't fly atop his brick. Instead, he took a step forward, and his terrifying divine sense enveloped an area with a radius of 5 kilometers around him. All of the students who had yet to encounter an enemy were within his field of vision. That's right, with the terrifying power of his consciousness, it was no longer difficult for him to detect the situation within a 5-kilometer radius. 126 adorable students. Are you all ready? A faint smile appeared on Lin's face as he snapped his fingers toward the sky. Boom! With him, as the epicenter, a terrifying energy fluctuation erupted forth for a radius of 5 kilometers. All of the students' expressions shifted drastically as they sensed his aura. At this moment, A familiar yet unfamiliar voice suddenly sounded. "Fourth year, Class 1, and Lynn, please enlighten me." All 426 students' expressions shifted drastically. Immediately afterward, an indistinct projection of Lin materialized before them, as if he were a projection of energy. Lin was the #1 legendary figure of the university. Who would have thought that the first enemy they encountered would be such a terrifying being? How were they supposed to continue? Some of the self-proclaimed prodigies were so terrified that their legs had turned to jelly. A woman in a pink dress with a hint of seductiveness seductively emanating from her dignified appearance appeared. She looked at Lin, and she did her best to compose herself. "Senior Lin, I am third year, Class 5, Chiu Luo Tao, and I've finally reached the 9th stage Dao body. My goal is to make the top 100 on the Immortal Rankings board. Can you spare me this once? I'll be eternally grateful to you in the future. I can give you a 100-meter head start," and Lin said emotionlessly. The woman's face paled, and she gritted her teeth as she fled into the distance. This kind of situation was not uncommon within a 5-kilometer radius. Some students chose to fight, some chose to beg for mercy, and some chose to flee. And Lin muttered to himself for 3 seconds before snapping his fingers toward the sky again. Boom! Blue lightning fell from the sky, and like claws tearing through the air, it crashed down indiscriminately upon the 126 students on the ground. Anguished wails reverberated through the clouds. Teacher Jihu, who was responsible for supervising the battles in this area, almost fell off his spirit tool. He immediately cursed, "F*CK me. How the F*CK is that possible?" Chapter 895. He wiped away the cold sweat on his forehead and forced himself to analyze the situation calmly. The free-for-all battle requires 2 parties to meet, and one party has to introduce themselves before the battle can begin. Lin's projection materialized from his consciousness can be considered as him, so it shouldn't be a violation of the rules. Su Zimo. Combat capability. 0. Achievement score. 0. There were always 1 or 2 students of the 10th stage Dao body who managed to block a lightning strike before fleeing for their lives. They didn't fight anyone, and their priority was to escape from the southwestern region. He had actually been releasing his divine sense this entire time, but his hands were trembling uncontrollably now. Vice Principal Yuhua. Chiu Luo Tao. Combat capability. 0. Achievement score. 0. There's no need to mention Lin. Just this technique alone is already more powerful than me. What should I write about his combat prowess? Should I just make an estimate? Jihu scratched his head frantically, but he still continued writing in the end. Holy F*CK. And Lin killed even faster than my record. Is there no one left who can stop this monster? Earth Immortal Jihu yelled in grief and indignation. Many students scoffed at this. Then, they soon arrived at the White Jade Plaza, where they hugged each other and cried bitterly. The students who had been eliminated for other reasons stared blankly at the joyous scene before them, and they suddenly felt like they were out of place on the Whitestone Plaza. The students who had just been struck by lightning were all confused. "Yeah, how did you know?" "You are..." "But Principal, this has severely affected the balance of the trial." Jihu yelled in grief and indignation. The students who had come out first suddenly felt a lot better upon seeing the hundreds of new students lying on the ground. As if they had been struck by lightning, the anguished cries of the students rose and fell incessantly. Lin. Combat capability. 2,000. Achievement score. 1850. Some of them even went up to greet him. "Hey, buddy, you were also struck by Senior Lin, right?" "Wah, how can Lin do this? I'm so useless." Some of the more fragile female students even covered their faces and wept in grief. Vice Principal Yuhua chuckled. "That's perfect. These arrogant students will have a taste of how cruel the difference in power levels in the cultivation world is." Here, there were still people to save them. If they were to leave society, the price might be their lives. All right, let's not talk about it anymore. Record it properly. Many students also began to doubt their lives. Even though they were geniuses in various fields, at this moment, They couldn't help but think sadly, why is there such a huge gap between people? Before Earth Immortal Ji, who could finish writing down the numbers, another burst of anguish screams rang out from several kilometers away. Hey, Earth Immortal Jihu? What's the matter? Vice Principal Yuhua's voice sounded rather leisurely. Earth Immortal Jihu, completely different from his Taoist name. He had the appearance of an extremely delicate and handsome young man. He looked gentle and weak. Haha, what a coincidence. I was also struck by Lin. The student who greeted him said cheerfully, as a teacher, you must be serious and responsible. You must be calm and steady in dealing with all kinds of unexpected situations. And they were eliminated at the same time? Calm down. No matter what happens, you must remain calm. Thus, word of Lin's transformation into a carnivorous demon in the southwestern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks began to spread throughout the entire Forest of 1,000 Peaks. However, this gentle and weak young man couldn't help but swear on the spot. Earth Immortal Ji, who then continued to write down the names of the other eliminated students. Despair, humiliation, extreme injustice in the southwestern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. Then, he quickly discovered that this really was a good opportunity to communicate with Lin. 99% of the students on the plaza had been eliminated by Lin. What a fellow sufferer. Yuhua's explanation was that Lin was also a student of Xiaoxian United University. He had crushed the noobs through his own power. So how could he accuse him of cheating? A golden light flashed past. Aren't you Wang Puda from third-year Class 1? How did you get eliminated so quickly? A student with a pitch-black face and hair standing on end from the explosion asked in surprise. What a coincidence. I was also eliminated by Godin. Another student with a pitch-black face exclaimed. If Lin could hear Vice Principal Yuhua's words, he would definitely be elated. Perhaps he would even reward the vice principal with a steamer of stuffed buns, ignore by to buy. So we're all the same. Over 100 students had been eliminated at the same time, and they had encountered Lin at the same time. That meant they didn't even get a chance to fight him one-on-one before they were eliminated. Ji, who took a deep breath. I want to report someone for cheating during the trial. Ahem, don't even mention it. My luck really is rotten to the max. I encountered senior student Lin. How could I have survived? Wang Puda spoke with a grief-stricken expression. 126 students. Only one student's protective golden light hasn't been unleashed, and Lin doesn't seem to have continued to attack. Over 100 students instantly appeared on the empty white jade plaza. Could it be? Vice Principal Yuhua hung up the voice transmission. Soon, all of the students discovered that something was amiss. Why did everyone look as if they had been struck by lightning? Earth Immortal Ji, who recorded the results of the students with tears streaming down his face. He wrote down names over and over again, then gave them zeros. He wanted nothing more than to grow a few more hands. They were able to withstand an attack from Lin, so they're extremely powerful, he began to write on his record. He wrote down zeros one by one, and he suddenly felt like these students were so pitiful. They had been insta-killed before they even had a chance to attack. How can Lin be so heartless? Ji, who took a deep breath and began to record on his record board. You were killed by Lin? The two of them fell into a peculiar silence as they looked at each other's charred faces. A student who had been struck by lightning and was lucky enough not to unleash his protective golden light was running around telling everyone to get as far away from the southwestern direction as possible and to be careful of Lin. The free-for-all battle requires that no one can team up to attack the same person. Those 126 students were all fighting against Lin, but they didn't know each other, so there was no way they could team up to attack each other. Again, how long had it been? F***CK. I haven't even finished recording down the numbers, and you've given me over 100 more? Earth Immortal Ji, who reported Lin to the vice principal of Yuhua, but his report was rejected. In the southwestern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, lightning continued to fall from the sky. Brother, everyone was struck by Lin. What's there to be proud of? Over 100 students who had been eliminated appeared at the same time, all of them lying on the ground with miserable expressions. Holy F***CK. You were also beaten by Lin? Jihu drew a sharp intake of breath before silently dialing a voice transmission talisman. Wu Zhong, combat capability, 103, achievement score, 0. Student Swa, senior student in Lin, doesn't know how to be gentle with women? A female student cried and complained loudly as she applied a healing fluid to her face. This place became hell for the students. His lips twitched as he spoke. These students didn't even get to touch Lin, so there was no point in talking about a combined attack. They were completely steamrolled by Lin. Right at this moment, another burst of golden light flashed. Rong Lu, combat capability, 0, achievement score, 0. Over 100 students looked at each other, and they seemed to have guessed something as 10,000 mythological bees stampeded over their hearts. Senior student in Lin, is he F*** King using a map cannon? Chapter 896. Before they knew it, several thousand students had already gathered on the White Jade Plaza. The smell of burnt flesh was still wafting through the air. Some of the beautiful young women's hair had also become fashionable curls. Some of the handsome upperclassmen's hair had even been struck into an afro. What a trendy scene. If they had the ability, they really wanted to thank the hairdresser and Lin. That's right, most of them have been eliminated by the Great Demon and Lin. All of the students had experienced the terrifying experience of being struck by lightning. They huddled together and confided in one another. Wow, that was too terrifying. Didn't you guys say that Senior in Lin was a coward who didn't dare to fight during the free-for-all battle? Why did he strike me with lightning as soon as we met? A first-year female student felt like she had been deceived, and she couldn't help but burst into tears. Sigh, there's simply too much of a difference in power. Don't the teachers do anything about it? If we were unlucky, we wouldn't even have a chance to fight against Lin. How are we supposed to judge his true power? A senior student who had been insta-killed shook his head and sighed. The students were all complaining, and some of them had even developed a psychological trauma toward Lin. In reality, it wasn't as if the teachers of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks weren't slacking off. A dozen or so teachers had transmitted their voices to Yuhua Vice Principal, informing him that Lin was too powerful and that they should just award him a trophy for the #1 spot on the Immortal Rankings board. Yuhua naturally refused with righteous words. What a joke. How could such an interesting free-for-all battle be canceled because of something like this? How many years had it been since such an interesting free-for-all battle? The Great Demon and Lin began to fly toward the northern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. Along the way, countless students let out anguished wails as their protective golden light was blasted away. Blood flowed everywhere he passed. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan looked at all of the adorable students whose dreams had been shattered by Lin, and he couldn't help but shake his head and sigh. No one could be blamed for this. This is fate. Didn't Lin's power give you nightmares? Or did he give you hope? Perhaps in the distant future, some of the students will turn around and thank this demon who bestowed upon them nightmares. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan looked up into the sky with a pair of misty eyes that seemed to be able to see through time and see the future. As for records, that's impossible. I'll just give them all 0 points. Madagascar, the long-legged beauty in black silk, was writing furiously on the Book of Flight. Holy *T, and Lin, did you purposely come here to train my observation skills and hand speed? Even chopping vegetables wouldn't be as fast as you. Earth Immortal Yuing grumbled as she continued to record data. Recording more than 100 people at once was a very exciting task. The first time I saw you in the trial, I thought you were cheating. I didn't expect that. You're even more awesome now. You're going to cheat and soar to the sky. And Lin was still playing the role of a cheat that didn't need to be explained. He had already forgotten how many students he had defeated. In any case, he only used the lightning fall technique within a radius of 10 li, ignoring those who could withstand a single strike from him. Just like that, he forcefully pushed forward. Forest of 1,000 Peaks, Southwest region. The top prodigy of the 5th-year cohort, Tang Shimin, was wandering around. He was in desperate need of battle to improve his results. His overall ranking on the Immortal Rankings board was determined by the sum of his combat capability in achievement points. The top dog of the previous cohort, Lu Qianhuan, was ranked second on the Immortal Rankings board. The top dog of the previous cohort, Wang Xuanzhan, was ranked first on the Immortal Rankings board for 2 consecutive years. Even though Tang Ximen's position as the top dog had been taken away by Zhua Qiubing, he was still ranked second in his cohort, right? This was the final competition before graduation, so it was still possible for him to make it into the top 5. And Lin, Su Xiaolan, Su Qianyun, and Zhua Qiubing. These four were more or less the best. This was what Tang Ximen thought. This was all thanks to Xin Yuan Cheng going into seclusion to break through to the soul formation stage. Otherwise, his dream of making it into the top 5 would have been completely dashed. That's strange. Why can't I find anyone? Tang Ximen thought to himself in bewilderment as he walked. He recalled encountering enemies in the free-for-all battles of the past. Why was it so empty now? There weren't even any sounds of battle. How am I supposed to display my power if I can't find anyone? I can't even earn any achievement points, let alone display my power. Tang Ximen was a little anxious, and he quickened his pace to search for anyone. An hour later, Tang Ximen fell into deep thought. Did I enter the wrong dungeon? He paused for a moment. Or, the monsters haven't respawned yet? In the sky above, Earth Immortal Ji who grimaced. Little brat, you really didn't enter the wrong dungeon. It's not that the monsters haven't respawned. It's that Lin has cleared all of them. Tang Ximen wandered around the southwestern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks with a perplexed expression. After another hour, he finally couldn't hold it in any longer and began to head north. There's something wrong with this place, but I refuse to believe that there's something wrong with the northern region as well. Tang Ximen used wind riding technique and flew toward the northern region with unquenchable battle intent still burning in his heart. Earth Immortal Ji who looked at Tang Ximen's departing figure with a sympathetic expression. Silly child, you could have chosen any path, but you just had to choose that direction. Is this fate? In the northwestern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, countless students experienced a nightmarish lightning strike. And Lin was like a god who wielded lightning in his hands, and bolts of lightning rained down wherever he went, crushing everything in his path. He even encountered a few powerful beings of the spirit-nurturing stage. All of them took a bolt of lightning from Lin head-on before fleeing into the distance. And Lin didn't make things difficult for them. These seated participants of the Immortal Rankings board should be allowed to shine for a while. Soon, the northwestern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks had been cleared, and Lin hummed a little tune as he advanced toward the northern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. In the sky above, a soul formation stage Earth Immortal was increasing Lin's stats with trembling hands. If these stats were to be exposed, everyone would definitely be blinded. And Lin, combat capability, 2,600 achievement points, 21560. More than 10,000 achievement points? This is a score that broke the record for the free-for-all battle of the university, and it's still increasing. Not only is he powerful, but his divine sense is also nature-defying. He's basically a hack in a trial like this. Once he unleashes his divine sense, all the students within a large area will be under his control. Not a single student will be able to escape. God of Slaughter. He's a King God of Slaughter. Cold sweat poured down the teacher's back. He realized that this was going to be a trial that was completely different from the free-for-all battles of the past. Not long after, an ordinary-looking man scurried around to search the area. A peculiar and perplexed expression appeared on his face. This isn't right. Why can't I find a single person here? This is way too abnormal. Am I dreaming? Tang Ximen became more and more panicked as he searched. The battle should have been in full swing, but he couldn't find a single person. This was definitely abnormal. Teacher, I have a question. Where are all the students? This isn't normal. Why is there no one here? Where are the 50,000 students scattered evenly across the Forest of 1,000 Peaks? Tang Ximen couldn't help but yell at the sky. However, there was no response. The teacher was also suffering in silence. Where are all the students? Of course, they had all gone outside. Tang Ximen wore a resigned expression. I don't believe it. It's impossible that all the students have disappeared. He paused for a moment before flying toward the northern region of the forest of 1,000 peaks. The teacher looked at Tang Ximen's back with sympathy. Silly child, of all the directions he could have gone, he just had to go in that direction. Chapter 897. Tang Ximen felt like he had seen a ghost. He didn't see any other students along the way, and his surroundings were completely empty, to the point where it felt surreal. Did I really participate in the free-for-all battle trial? Tang Ximen's brows furrowed tightly as he flew on his sword. He felt like he had participated in a fake trial. On the White Stone Plaza, over 10,000 students had already begun to loudly protest. I strongly demand that the teachers turn on the crystal screen. That's right. We don't want to see anything else. We just want to see senior student and Lin's ugly face. I only want to see God in. I only want to see him slaughter everyone. Please turn on the crystal screen. The students on the plaza were extremely vocal in their protests. In particular, the juniors who were participating in the free-for-all battle for the first time had entered the trial with high hopes and dreams in their hearts, only to be blasted out by Lin's bolt of lightning. It was an extremely bad trial experience. Hence, they really wanted to see what this legendary figure was doing. The collective voices of over 10,000 students gave the teacher in charge of the crystal screen a lot of pressure. The teacher had no choice but to report this news to Vice Principal Yuhua. However, to his surprise, the principal readily agreed to the request to turn on the crystal screen in advance. He also requested that all of the students who had been tortured be captured clearly. The teacher's lips twitched upon hearing this. Was this principal a bit of a freak? Thus, the crystal screen lit up at the request of over 10,000 students. They saw a figure in a flowing white robe. He looked very radiant and harmless, but many of the students were already gritting their teeth with rage. It was him. It was that Demon King. And Lin quickly flew on his brick toward the northern region of the forest of 1,000 peaks with an expressionless face, as if he were a god looking down on the world. He snapped his fingers toward the sky. The crisp snap of his fingers was accompanied by over 100 bolts of extremely powerful lightning falling from the sky. Over 100 different images appeared on the crystal screen at once. The students there wailed with anguish. Some of them fled, while others tried their best to defend themselves against the lightning. However, the lightning was far more terrifying than they had imagined. It tore through all obstacles and instantly charred them black. PFFF, PFFF, PFFF. One student after another fell to the ground with their eyes rolled over into the back of their heads. The tens of thousands of students in the square who were about to denounce Zhang Xian saw this scene and forgot to speak. They couldn't help but tremble. They recalled the fear of being dominated by Lin's thunderbolts. They really empathized with him. And Lin was like a demonic god. Wherever he went, he killed. The students were powerless against him. With a snap of his fingers, they fell to the ground. Terrifying, it's too terrifying. Senior Lin, I was wrong about you. I didn't expect you to be such a cruel and merciless person. Wah, Godin, do you have the heart to treat your adorable fan like this? I'm allergic to snapping my fingers now. No one is allowed to snap their fingers in front of me. At this moment, an image suddenly appeared in front of them. Look, there's a person over there who hasn't been struck by the golden light barrier. A student exclaimed. Everyone turned their gazes to one of the images. There was a man whose body was slightly charred black. He quickly charged at Lin, his sword slashing out a streak of white light, cutting Lin in half. He won. To put it more accurately, he won against the projection created by Senior and Lin's consciousness. And Lin has left. Has that Senior been acknowledged? I remember that Senior is third-year Class 2's Chun Shan. He's a powerful being who made it onto the Immortal Rankings board last year. Everyone fell silent as they looked at the powerful being who was panting heavily with a confident smile on his face. That figure was so dazzling, yet so piercing to the eyes. They were complaining that Lin was too cruel and merciless. They were complaining that Lin hadn't even given them a chance to experience the trial before eliminating them. But had they ever thought about the source of all of this? It wasn't that Lin was too cruel. It was that they were too weak. They were so weak that they couldn't even withstand the lightning summoned by Lin with a snap of his fingers. Why did they have to complain? Some of the students had already understood and hung their heads in shame. So that's how it is. I understand God and his good intentions now. He's willing to incur countless insults in order to teach me a lesson. I understand now. A female student stared at the man on the crystal screen with tears in her eyes, unwilling to look away. A male student even hammered his fists into the ground. I'm so weak, yet I'm still blaming others. I'm not a man. Many of the students fell into deep thought. On the plaza, there were fewer and fewer words of criticism and discontent toward Lin. Some of the students even tried to convince themselves that they were even more impressed by Lin than before. They had transformed from casual fans to true fans. Batch after batch of students were eliminated. After sweeping through the northern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, Lin decided to head east first. As for the central region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, he was naturally going to leave it for last. It was as if he had gone around in a circle before returning to the center. Tang Shimin was in complete despair as he followed behind Lin. He had yet to encounter a single student, and he was beginning to doubt his life. What do I do? There's no one in the northern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks either. Should I head east or toward the center? Tang Shimin was in a daze. Logically speaking, there should be more people in the central region. However, this trial is far too bizarre, and I have to do the exact opposite of what I should do, so a smile appeared on Tang Shimin's face as he looked toward the eastern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. Heading east was the correct path, and Lin was still slaughtering his way through the crowd. He was invincible and unstoppable. More and more students gathered on the Whitestone Plaza. In just over half a day, there had already been over 40,000 students. After sweeping through the northern region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, Lin began to move toward the central region. Tang Shimin finally encountered his first enemy in the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. He was so moved that he was on the verge of tears, and he almost grabbed that student's hand and yelled, "Fellow countrymen." However, that student seemed to have encountered something extremely terrifying, and he didn't even look at Tang Shimin before flying into the distance on his sword. Tang Shimin boom! Right at this moment, the enchantment barrier enshrouding the entire Forest of 1,000 Peaks began to shrink. The enchantment barrier that was supposed to shrink on the third day began to shrink on the first day. All of the students didn't know what to say anymore. My God, senior student Lin managed to make the enchantment barrier shrink 2 days in advance. Sigh, when can I become as outstanding as Godin? I don't have high expectations. I just want to be 1% as outstanding as Godin. I don't have high expectations either. I just want to be Lin's girlfriend. Oi, the girl next door, you're asking too much. Can you stop dreaming? In the central region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, stars and a bright moon hung high in the sky. Achoo! A female in a jade dress sneezed involuntarily. Lin misses me? A faint smile appeared on her face as a few black figures appeared beside her. Come on, there's a surprise waiting for you here. Chapter 898. And Lin felt like it had been a long time since he had fought to his heart's content like this. No, it had been a long time since he had bullied his adorable classmates to his heart's content. The last time he had been this arrogant was when he rode on Dubai and became the dog and man duo. At that time, he rode on a mighty big white and swept through the world, mercilessly beating up the cute students. His stalwart figure was deeply imprinted in the minds of the students. Now that he had successfully cultivated a godly technique, he was on a killing spree in all directions. The number of students he had killed had already reached 20,000. This meant that over half of the students who had been eliminated had been killed by Lin. He was like an invincible god of war as he advanced toward the central region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. My adorable classmates, do you feel my power? Do you feel despair? Let's see if you still dare to call me bastard from now on. And Lin stood atop his black brick with a sinister smile on his face. Many of the students on the Whitestone Plaza were already getting nervous. It's over. and Lin is going to kill the last batch of students. Is there no one else who can stop the Demon King? That's impossible. Senior student and Lin has already broken through to soul formation final stage. His cultivation base is the highest in the history of the university. Who can stop him? Unless it's her. That's right, there's still one more person who can stop him. Most of the students came to a realization and stared at the crystal screen with excitement. Some of them wore expressions of anticipation, while others wore expressions of curiosity. And Lin flew toward the center of the forest of 1,000 peaks atop his brick. This was usually the place where the immortal rankings board powerful beings battled, but for some reason, it was unusually quiet now. The night breeze blew past, bringing with it a slight chill. And Lin furrowed his brows. He had unintentionally released his divine sense, but was unable to detect any student activity. No, there's someone. His expression became serious as he flew toward a certain direction. Soon, he saw a black-robed man sitting on the ground with his legs crossed. His aura was subdued, as if he were accumulating something. The man opened his eyes, and an indescribable sharpness appeared on his handsome face. Senior Lin, I've been waiting for you for a long time. First year, Class 1, Zhu Xiaojia. Please enlighten me. And Lin snapped out his daze. He was the leader of the freshmen, and it was said that he was a rare prodigy from the Great Tang imperial family in the Baihua prefecture. On the white jade square, many of the freshmen couldn't help but exclaim when they saw Zhu Xiaojia. Many of them even cheered him on. Clearly, he was very popular among the freshmen. I've finally met a decent opponent. I hope you won't disappoint me. And Lin chuckled as he walked towards Zhu Xiaojia. Zhu Xiaojia smiled faintly, raised his hands to the sky, and clenched the void. The sky was filled with twinkling stars, and the power of the stars converged to form a purple blade. With a dreamy luster, it slashed down at Lin. Someone actually knows how to play with the power of stars. Interesting. And Lin's interest was piqued. He extended his finger and tapped the air. All the spectators let loose cries of surprise. Finger of the heavenly sun? Some students rolled their eyes. Godin, do you really need to use the finger of the heavenly sun against an opponent like this? Sure enough, and Lin's finger didn't unleash any power. It simply tapped the purple blade, and the blade was unable to advance any further. That's all you've got. A devilish smile appeared on Lin's face. Then I'm really going to be disappointed. Zhu Xiaojia's aura suddenly soared explosively, and he stomped his foot onto the ground. Star Realm Illusionary Shadow. Boom! The purple blade suddenly exploded, transforming into a cloud of illusionary mist that enshrouded Lin. In that instant, a hint of confusion appeared in Lin's eyes. His heart jolted in shock. So Zhu Xiaojia's forte wasn't in using the power of stars to attack. Instead, he was using the power of stars to activate powerful illusionary formations. But you're not planning on using this illusionary formation to trap me, are you? And Lin chuckled lightly as a mocking expression appeared on his face. This type of illusionary formation could be used to trap spirit nurturing stage cultivators, but trying to trap him? That was just wishful thinking. I don't need to trap you for a moment, Zhu Xiaojia replied indifferently. What did that mean? And Lin blinked in confusion. Right at this moment, two sword projections tore through the illusionary mist with extremely powerful might. The sword projections were so sharp that the ground over 1,000 feet in radius around them began to crack open, inky black trenches. The two sword projections, one black and one white, were like two enraged dragons in perfect coordination, sealing off all avenues of retreat for Lin. And Lin's expression shifted in shock. What's going on? Have you two gone insane? He didn't dare to be careless, and he reached out to grab the two sword projections that were hurtling toward him from different directions. Clang! The sword projections collided with his palms, and a sharp screeching sound erupted. The chaotic sword intent instantly reduced the ground within a radius of over 100 meters to dust. Two figures began to appear. The male had a cold and aloof expression, while the green-robed woman was a beautiful and alluring woman. All the students on the white jade plaza let out cries of surprise when they saw the two of them. It's third-year Yao Mingxi and Yao Xiao. My God, the two most powerful third-year cultivators are teaming up. Yao Xiao is of the spirit-nurturing intermediate stage, and Yao Mingxi has reached the spirit-nurturing final stage. Apparently, the two of them have a sword technique that can even defeat a soul formation stage cultivator if they combine their powers. The eyes of the third-year students were burning with passion as they stared at the two people on the crystal screen, as if they were the ones fighting. Say, don't you guys think it's strange that they're teaming up? Strange my asterisk SS. And Lin the Demon King won't be able to win if they don't team up. That's right. I support teaming up. Come on, take down and Lin the Demon King. In the square, another wave of cheers and jeers arose. Teaming up was prohibited in the free-for-all battle, but the tens of thousands of students didn't oppose this kind of battle. Instead, they strongly supported it. Within the forest of 1,000 peaks, and Lin was displeased. He yelled toward the sky, "Teacher, I'm reporting you. Someone is disobeying the rules of the trial. What happened to the one-on-one battle?" Dioscoria Kankangensis, who was in charge of the central region of the forest of 1,000 peaks, chuckled but didn't say anything. Vice Principal Yuhua, who was in charge of the entire trial, had a thoughtful smile on his face. "Little guy, your strength is so amazing, so the rules of the free-for-all battle should naturally become more interesting." No teacher answered in Lin's question. The only thing that answered him was the sudden eruption of the ground. Boom! The ground beneath and Lin's feet exploded. The man who had been hiding with the earth-breathing technique for a long time finally appeared at the most crucial moment and threw a punch toward Lin. The golden fist swept out for several hundred meters, and the powerful fist force even flattened the air. And Lin's hands were blocking Yao Mingxi and Yao Xiao's sword projections, so there was no way he could dodge this attack. Following a deafening boom, and Lin was hammered into the air. Its classmate Hu Guan, a student, screamed. Following the appearance of the first-year and third-year gang leaders, the second-year gang leader has also appeared. An excited expression appeared on a student's face. Who's next? Some students were already looking forward to it. These prodigies who had joined forces to attack Lin seemed to bear the hopes of their entire grade as they charged toward the path of defeating Demon King and Lin. Lin could bully them as he pleased, and they were powerless to resist. However, the top prodigies of each grade would avenge them. Waves of cheers erupted in the plaza again, and the atmosphere reached a climax. Lin, who was floating in the air, raised his head and looked toward the sky. He discovered that a woman with silky black hair had appeared from the clouds. She stood on a blue moon and held a lotus flower that contained a terrifying amount of moonlight energy in her hands. Excitement flashed through her dreamy blue eyes under the moonlight. She gently waved her hand, and the blue and white lotus flower pierced through the air before landing on Lin's body. Immortal Wrath Fire Lotus Explode. Chapter 899. The Immortal Wrath Fire Lotus was an inheritance that Su Qianyun had obtained from the Immortal Spirit Tower. As expected of a supremely talented cultivator, she was able to use her observation of the Immortal Wrath Fire Lotus to modify the essential power of the spell technique from the power of flames to the power of the moon, thereby creating a modified version of the Immortal Wrath Fire Lotus in order to unleash the full potential of her power. When the blue and white lotus flew through the air toward Lin, and Lin was finally struck by a sense of peril, the lotus instantly exploded. The boundless power of the moon was like a white halo that kept expanding, engulfing the surroundings and shattering everything in the void. The entire heaven and earth tremored violently as gale-force winds swept forth for a radius of 5 kilometers. At the very center of the explosion was the terrifying power of the moon, which was capable of corroding all things. The blue power was the power of frost, while the white power was the power of purification and slicing. The two different types of power crashed violently toward the man at the center of the explosion. All of the male cultivators on the plaza looked on with wide eyes as they stared at the man at the center of the explosion with nervous expressions. Goddess Sue is so powerful. I've never seen a soul formation stage cultivator unleash such a terrifying technique. Did you selectively forget about Godin? Will Demon King and Lin be able to summon his golden light barrier this time? You're overthinking things. Senior student and Lin's golden light barrier won't be able to be summoned so easily, but he should be able to sustain some damage from such a terrifying explosion. In the next instant, an inky black sword projection tore through the power of the moon, and Lin stepped out from the darkness, completely unscathed. He had donned an inky black cloak that obscured the stars and moon, and a terrifying aura instantly proliferated forth. Endless Night, Sword Technique. All of the prodigies present felt a sense of asphyxiation, and even the spectating students were struck by an indescribable sense of pressure, as if they were facing a true demon. Right at this moment, a cold light flashed through the air. Lightning revolved around the spear, and it roared like a dragon as it instantly tore through the power of darkness around Lin before stabbing toward Lin's heart. It's fifth-year senior Zhuo Qiubing. A student exclaimed excitedly. Zhuo Qiubing's spear technique is invincible, and he's practically invincible among the students of the same cohort. Even Senior Tang was defeated by him in a practical battle. Student Zhuo Qiubing's performance reminds me of Wang Xuanzhan's glory. Zhuo Qiubing had reached the half-step soul formation stage before Tang Shimen and became the leader of the fifth-year cohort, so he was also quite respected among the students. However, just as everyone was watching. Lin didn't even take a second look before slashing his sword through the air. Scram! The pitch-black sword light seemed to be able to swallow the heavens and the earth, instantly turning the surroundings into a dark prison. The power of the lightning spear collided with the sword light, but lasted less than a second before it was broken, and its body was sent tumbling backwards. Zhuo Qiubing let loose a wail of anguish as his body was engulfed by the black sword projection. A beam of golden light enveloped his body. All of the students stared blankly at the protective golden light on the screen, and all of their cheers came to an abrupt halt. The leader of the fifth-year cohort, the half-step soul formation stage, Zhuo Qiubing, had been insta-killed. However, in the instant that Lin's attack fell, a white holy flame tore through the Endless Night Sword Technique's barrier of light. White flaming wings spread open, making the woman in the jade dress appear as if she were a holy maiden from the heavens. The exquisitely beautiful woman wielded her dragon sparrow sword, and the terrifying sword might emanating from her body threatened to crush the entire sky. At this moment, all of the shock from Zhuo Qiubing's insta-kill was completely forgotten. All of the tens of thousands of students stared up at the exquisitely beautiful and extremely powerful woman in the sky with scorching light in their eyes. She was the second legendary figure of the university, the one who had the best chance of defeating Lin, Su Xiaolan. She was the warrior who had the best chance of defeating the Demon King. Vermilion bird, God's slaying strike, a clear voice sounded in the sky. She wielded her dragon sparrow sword, which erupted with flames that lit up the night sky as she slashed down toward Lin without any hesitation. It was as if the vermilion bird had fallen to the earth and instantly engulfed Lin. A massive fissure of several kilometers in length appeared on the ground from the terrifying, scorching temperatures emanating from the sword projection. Several small mountains were also melted into nothingness before disappearing from heaven and earth. All of the spectating students' eyes widened, and their bodies trembled uncontrollably. They had clearly been given a fright by Su Xiaolan's sword strike. Was this a F***king attack that a soul formation stage cultivator could unleash? They're both students of the Celestial Court, but why is Goddess Xiaolan so exceptional? What I'm more concerned about is, senior student Lin wouldn't have been killed, would he? I don't know. Did senior student cheat on her? Is that why senior student's sister is going to do it herself? Godin is going to be fine. He's bastardin. His defensive prowess is very high. All of the students discussed spiritedly among themselves, and some of them were even sweating profusely from nervousness. Spectating a battle of this caliber was even more exciting than participating in the battle themselves. Within the sea of holy flames, the air within a radius of over a kilometer was twisted and warped like a dream. Su Xiaolan descended from the sky and made her way toward a certain direction. All of the flames danced around her like fairies. In the sky above, Su Qianyun materialized another ball of immortal wrath flames in her palatial dress and was ready to unleash it. Yao Mingxi and Yao Xiu wielded their swords with one hand and continued to accumulate sword intent. Zhu Xiaojia's body twisted and distorted before gradually disappearing. At this moment, there was only one target, and all of it was aimed at one person. And Lin, stop playing dead. If you're going to fight, then let's fight. Su Xiaolan's voice was as clear as a spring, and it pierced through the sea of flames before landing on a certain spot on the melted earth. Boom! The black aura took the form of a spiral, instantly dispersing the surrounding holy flames, revealing the man's slightly battered figure. His clothes were in tatters, and his hair was slightly curled up, but there was still a faint smile on his face. Xiaolan, it's not a good idea for you to unleash your most powerful attack right from the get-go. A vibrant smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face as dimples appeared on her face. How do you know it's a powerful attack? It's just a small spell technique. And Lin's eyelids twitched. I'm sorry, but I must be the champion of the Immortal Rankings Board. I must stand until the end of this battle. Su Xiaolan's eyes flashed with a piercing light, and she held her sword horizontally in front of her as battle intent surged. That's great. I've always been looking forward to your determination. Otherwise, this battle would be meaningless. The two of them faced off against each other as their auras soared into the clouds. What terrifying power! Yao Xiu let loose a delicate cry as her entire body trembled. Yao Mingxi stared at Lin with a scorching light in his eyes. This is the man we should be chasing after. What a mighty figure. Even further away, a white-robed figure poked his head out and trembled uncontrollably at the sight of the battle taking place in the distance. It's one thing for there to be so few students, but why are there so many powerful beings attacking Lin together? Wait, this is against the rules. But the teachers aren't stopping them. Strange. All of this is too strange. This figure was none other than Tang Shimen, who had rushed all the way to the central region of the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. He looked up into the sky with a disconsolate expression. As expected, I'm participating in a fake trial. Chapter 900. Su Xiaolan and Lin, the two fated opponents, finally met. Another wave of excitement erupted on the plaza as tens of thousands of students began to discuss fervently. My God, I'm so excited. Are Lin and Su Xiaolan finally going to fight? I've been waiting for this for a long time. Can Su Xiaolan really defeat Lin? Although I also want to see Demon King Lin lose, I have to admit that Lin is the most powerful person in the university. Hee, Lin dares to win? The spectators discussed fervently among themselves as they watched the climax of the drama unfold. Within the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, all the prodigies were extremely tense. Holy flames erupted from Su Xiaolan's body once again, materializing into the form of a vermilion bird that enveloped her body. At the same time, her eyes turned golden as a terrifying dragon's might radiated outward. It was also at this moment that a hazy starlight suddenly descended and enveloped Lin's body. Bam, bam, bam. Several chains of water pierced through the starlight and shot toward Lin. They were extremely fast and as agile as flying snakes. Su Xiaolan knew that Lin could control lightning, so she didn't use lightning chains. Lin was enveloped by the starlight, and a dazed look appeared in his eyes for an instant. However, he quickly came to his senses. White streams of wind revolved around his long sword, and wings of wind spread out behind him. His speed instantly increased by several times, and he barely evaded the chains before charging toward a certain direction. Don't think that I won't be able to detect you just because you're hiding in the shadows. A snow-white light flashed past Lin's eyes as he activated his divine inspection technique, and a sword projection stabbed toward a certain direction. The sword projection was imbued with extreme sharpness, and ripples appeared in the air as a bloody mist exploded. Zhu Xiaojia's chest was punctured, and he threw up a large mouthful of blood. A golden protective barrier also appeared in that instant, blocking Enlin's sword projection. The leader of the freshmen was also instantly killed by the great demon king. At this time, Su Xiaolan's water chain rushed to Enlin's front and wrapped around his body. 4 divine flames erupted from Enlin's body, and the high temperature melted the chains of water around him. I was waiting for you to use this move. The corners of Su Xiaolan's lips curled up, and the holy flame vermilion bird around her suddenly let loose a clear cry, as if it was issuing a command to all flames in the world. The 4 divine flames Enlin had unleashed suddenly exploded, as if they were no longer under his control. Rumble. 4 colored flames exploded, engulfing the earth within a radius of 1,000 meters. The godfire was still wreaking havoc. In the sky above, Su Qianyin threw down her immortal wrath fire lotus. Su Xiaolan made a hand seal, and the white flaming vermilion bird on her body rushed towards Enlin. The immortal fury fire lotus exploded, and so did the holy flame vermilion bird. Heaven and earth trembled, and the flames transformed into shockwaves that extended for close to 10 kilometers. A massive mushroom cloud rose into the sky, exuding boundless light and heat. The terrifying energy even caused the enchantment barrier in the sky to tremor and crack slightly. Tang Shimin, who was spectating from afar, was also knocked to the ground by the shockwaves. Hu Guan, who had unleashed his earth-breathing technique and was hiding underground in preparation for a sneak attack, was also blasted into the ground by the terrifying explosion, and even his protective golden light was revealed. The leader of the second-year team, Hu Guan, was eliminated. On the white Jade Plaza, all of the second-year students wore awkward expressions upon seeing Hu Guan's abrupt exit, and some of them even covered their faces in speechlessness. How humiliating. It was one thing for their leader to be defeated in a fair and square battle, but who would have thought that he would be eliminated for no apparent reason? Speaking of which, even student Hu Guan, who was hiding underground, was eliminated. Enlin is probably going to be unable to withstand such a terrifying attack, right? A student suddenly speculated. This was the same thought in many of the students' minds. After all, the visual impact of the explosion was simply too overwhelming. They really couldn't think of any power that could withstand such an attack. The flames gradually dissipated. A gargantuan crater appeared before everyone's eyes. All of the students' eyes widened as they saw a man with tattered clothes, but he was still standing with his sword in his hand. The man's eyes were bright and piercing, and even though there were a few charred marks on his body, the wounds were healing at a rate discernible to the naked eye due to his extremely powerful regenerative ability. He healed just like that? Some of the students' eyes widened with incredulity. As expected of Godin, he's still completely unscathed even after enduring such a terrifying attack. Is this the power of Senior Enlin? He really does live up to his reputation. He's so handsome. So what if I'm struck by his lightning? I don't care, even if he tortures me 1,000 times over. I want to join the support team. Some of the female students who had just entered the university were completely entranced, and a scorching light appeared in their eyes as they stared at the confident man. Oi, you're betraying our defeat, the Demon King revolutionary camp, just like that? Some of the male students were grief-stricken. Su Xiaolan's long eyelashes trembled slightly at the sight of Enlin's expression, as if she was a little surprised. However, a smile then appeared on her face as her battle intent surged even more violently, and she charged toward Enlin again. Yao Mingxi and Yao Xiao stood off to the side, unleashing one long-range sword projection after another to harass her. Enlin stomped a foot onto the ground, and heaven and earth suddenly dimmed. Su Xiaolan's heart jolted with shock, and she immediately unleashed her holy flame to protect herself, upon which she heard the blood-curdling cries of Yao Mingxi and Yao Xiao. When the light returned to heaven and earth, the two siblings had already collapsed to the ground with severe injuries, and a golden protective light had been unleashed from their bodies. Yao Mingxi and Yao Xiao had been eliminated. Enlin's evil-slaying sword was stained with blood, but his eyes were fixed on the woman in the blue palatial dress in the sky. Su Qinyun's body trembled slightly, and she had clearly been intimidated by Enlin's domineering aura. Enlin really did want to kill Su Qinyun first, but Su Xiaolin wasn't going to let him have his way. She swept her holy flame toward Enlin, and each and every one of her sword strikes was imbued with extremely fearsome power. This wasn't the first time that Enlin had sparred with Su Xiaolin, but this was the first time that he had been so serious about it. He didn't dare to get complacent, and he immediately unleashed his endless night sword techniques. Devastating sword strikes clashed relentlessly with the holy flame slashes, transforming the ground within a radius of several kilometers into a terrifying realm of death. Gale force winds wreaked havoc as the earth melted and cracked, and the shockwaves from their attacks were powerful enough to raise a mountain to the ground. All of the students stared intently at the screen with wide eyes, and they were so nervous that they didn't even blink. Holy Mother of God, is this really a battle between soul formation stage cultivators? Even through the screen, I can feel the terrifying power radiating from their battle. My uncle is a new return to void stage mighty figure, so even his attacks aren't as powerful as theirs. Dioscoria Cancongensis, who is responsible for recording the final area, grimaced. Principal, our trial venue, the Forest of 1,000 Peaks, is about to be completely destroyed by them. Is this really okay? Vice Principal Yuhua took a deep breath and gritted his teeth. It's okay. It wasn't actually okay. His heart was still throbbing with pain. However, this was a trial venue, and he couldn't just stop the students from fighting. Could he? They were the #1 university in the Kingdom of the 9 States, but they didn't even have a trial venue for their students to fight to their heart's content. Wouldn't they become the laughingstock of the entire Tai Chu continent? Thus, the battle between Enlin and Su Xiaolan continued as tens of thousands of students watched nervously. Never would they have thought that the free-for-all battle would become a one-man show between Enlin and Su Xiaolan. This was way too King exciting. Chapter 901. A daybreak sword sliced through the darkness and became the only color between heaven and earth. Who won? Enlin's hands were trembling as self-blame welled up in his heart. Enlin rolled his eyes. I have such a high IQ. How could I be an idiot? What a joke. Be careful, Xiaolan. Enlin wielded his sword with one hand, and golden void lightning, which was imbued with the power of annihilation, revolved around the blade of his sword. The space around him seemed to be unable to withstand the devastating power and began to crack open. On the main battlefield, Su Xiaolan was struck by Enlin's daybreak slash, and a bloody gash appeared on her body. Crimson stains spread all over her black dress, but she was still standing. Su Xiaolan finally burst into laughter at the sight of Enlin's renewed fighting spirit. If you don't take this seriously, you'll have to kneel on a lava durian when we get back. The tens of thousands of students on the Whitestone Plaza were no longer able to remain calm. Again, Su Xiaolan unleashed her true dragon and vermilion bird. Her dragon body was her armor, and her holy flames were her swords. She stood atop the vermilion bird and rose into the air as if she were a proud holy maiden. Be careful, too. Su Xiaolan pursed her lips. Enlin, have you forgotten? You told me that I have to take this trial seriously and not be like before. Do you think I'll feel good just because you gave up? Almost all of the students stared intently at the screen, witnessing the most intense battle in the history of Xiaoxian United University. Dioscoria Cancongensis, who was responsible for recording the battle prowess, was sweating profusely. The combat prowess of these two students was off the charts. How was he supposed to evaluate them? Enlin hovered his evil-slaying sword in front of him, and his black cape transformed into 99 black vortexes, which radiated a black light that seemed to be able to engulf all things. Principal, since there are only a few students left, why don't we remove the barrier? A teacher couldn't hold on any longer and shouted for help. Boom! And Lin's legs gave out from under him, and he became even more serious. The teachers maintaining the barrier were starting to feel like they couldn't hold on much longer. Su Qianyun, on the other hand, thought that she had found an opportunity and threw an Immortal's Fury Fire Lotus at Lin. Golden lightning soared into the sky, illuminating the night sky. Su Xiaolan. Combat points 2,950, achievement points 3, 580, and Lin didn't dodge or evade and directly took a big move. The flames gradually dissipated, and so did the lightning. A figure gradually appeared in the vision of the students. Senior Su Xiaolan is an accomplice this time. Speaking of which, weren't these two ridiculously strong? My heart aches for my teacher who was blown away. Damn it, calling him the Great Demon King wasn't wrong. His achievement points were about to break the school record by more than 10 times. How many cute students had he slaughtered? Thankfully, Principal Yuhua was around to give him a rough estimate. Otherwise, Dioscorea Cancongensis really would be a goner. And Lin finally recalled the teary eyes of Su Xiaolan during the free-for-all battle. Was he going to make Su Xiaolan cry again? The tip of the sword crashed into Lin's chest, upon which a scintillating light erupted forth. Boom! Indeed, he didn't want to hurt Su Xiaolan. Could Su Xiaolan just stand by and watch him get pummeled until he was eliminated? The holy flame slash exploded, and the destructive energy spread out, raising the nearby mountains to the ground. PFFF, 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 gotten his F** king up again. Last time, he destroyed the enchantment barrier around the Immortal Spirit Tower, and this time he's even destroying the enchantment barrier around the Forest of 1,000 Peaks. And Lin, combat points 3,100, achievement points 85410 inch. Did he try to take the down with him? Several teachers were blasted flying by the backlash of the enchantment barrier as they threw up mouthfuls of blood. And Lin's heart throbbed with pain at the sight of the wounded Su Xiaolan. Su Xiaolan, their enchantment barrier had absorbed almost all of the energy that had escaped, which was why it was in such a sorry state. Su Xiaolan raised her head, and a smug smile appeared on her face as her golden eyes met Lin's. She raised her aura to its peak, and her dragon sparrow sword tore through the final barrier before stabbing toward Lin's chest. Vice Principal Yuhua clasped his hands behind his back. Hold on for a bit longer. You're all teachers of the United University of Cultivation, but you can't even withstand the shockwaves from a student's attack? Don't worry, they're almost at the end of the battle. What the hell did he do? How did he really wound Su Xiaolan? F***CK. They were responsible for restricting the range of battle for the normal students, not the range of battle for these two supremely talented prodigies. Endless night, Dawn. A faint smile appeared on Yuhua's face upon seeing this. Remove the enchantment barrier? What a joke. If they removed the enchantment barrier, the entire forest of 1,000 peaks would be torn down by those two. How would they be able to hold the free-for-all battle next year? Dioscorea Cancongensis fell silent as he stared at Lin's achievement score. A sense of extreme peril welled up in Lin's heart, and a piercing pain shot through his heart. Lin felt extremely depressed. If Su Xiaolan knew that she was trying to turn him into a eunuch for 100 years, what would her reaction be? Another massive crater appeared on the ground, within which lay a man who had lost all hope in life. The two of them unleashed their final techniques at the same time. The Immortal Wrath Fire Lotus exploded. Within the trial ground, energy surged violently, and terrifying shockwaves sent the earth flying before crashing into the blue enchantment barrier, causing it to tremor violently. Su Xiaolan raised her sword to her eyebrows, and her sword intent abruptly increased. Again, in that instant, the only things that remained between heaven and earth were boundless holy flames and piercing lightning. And Lin steeled his heart, and he flipped his evil-slaying sword through the air. The black robe around the blade of the sword exploded, and a white light soared into the sky, illuminating the night as if it were day. Su Qianyun was a little dumbstruck as she looked down at the lifeless man at the bottom of the crater. Has classmate Lin become an idiot? Su Xiaolan faltered slightly at the sight of Enlin's devoid of battle intent. Crack! A crack appeared on the blue enchantment barrier before shattering. Su Xiaolan and Enlin were still battling, and the battle was becoming more and more intense as time went on. They had already reached the point where they were both unleashing their most powerful attacks. Yuhua was also given a fright upon seeing this, and he immediately stabilized the space within a radius of several dozen kilometers while keeping the energy of the explosion at bay. And Lin took a deep breath before standing up again, and his aura soared explosively as his sword intent soared into the heavens. Sorry for the offense, Xiaolan. And Lin's defenses were broken through layer by layer, and just as the holy flames were about to dissipate, the dragon sparrow sword flashed through the air, and the power of the vermilion bird and true dragon combined to elevate its sharpness to the extreme. He quickly retreated, and Su Xiaolan's sword chased after him relentlessly. The teachers were all a little ashamed upon hearing this, and they worked even harder to maintain the enchantment barrier. The teachers who were maintaining the spell formation were struck by backlash from the power of the enchantment barrier, and blood trickled down the corners of their mouths. Su Xiaolan conjured her true dragon in this dire situation, and she was then engulfed by the light of the sword strike. Boom! White sword intent pulverized the earth before crashing into the enchantment barrier. Within the forest of 1,000 peaks, the enchantment barrier had already completely shrunk. Vermilion bird god, slaying sword. A boundless light erupted from Su Xiaolan's dragon sparrow sword, and a holy flame projection extended for several kilometers before crashing down upon Enlin. Boom! An earth-shattering collision erupted, and the space around them began to crumble. Terrifying energy proliferated outward like a ball, crashing violently into the enchantment barrier. Chapter 902. The black figure gradually appeared in everyone's field of vision. My God, it's Enlin. He didn't fall. Some students exclaimed. That's right. Only that man was still standing in the final battle. Enlin's shirt had already been completely incinerated by the holy flames, revealing his firm yet slightly charred muscles, and a faint gash had appeared on his chest. Even after enduring such a terrifying attack, he was still standing like an invincible war god. Enlin made his way forward and looked at the disheveled woman lying on the ground with a faint golden protective light around her body. The two of them exchanged a smile. Thank you. Enlin joined his fists in a salute. A vibrant smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face, as expected of the super demon king of this trial. How impressive. The woman's body disappeared into specks of light. Enlin heaved a long sigh of relief. He had finally won this mission. A blue and white lotus flower had appeared before him, and it was slowly rotating while exuding terrifying energy fluctuations. Enlin, Su Qianyan, are you addicted to throwing immortal wrath fire lotuses? He roared. Boom! Energy instantly exploded, reducing the ground within a radius of over a kilometer to dust. Beads of sweat appeared on Su Qianyan's forehead. Using the immortal wrath fire lotuses consecutively was extremely taxing on her vital energy, and this was already her final attack. She stood atop her moonlight disk as she stared intently at the center of the explosion. Her pink lips pursed slightly as she murmured to herself, Did you manage to blast it out? Nope. A ghostly voice sounded beside her ear. Su Qianyan's face paled with fright upon hearing this voice. Enlin's body gradually materialized like clouds and mist, and a golden lotus insignia flashed on his forehead as he activated his Earth Lotus Supreme skill, imbuing his fist with boundless power. It's over, he said in a cold voice. Su Qianyan's features paled as she said in a mellow voice, Be gentle. Enlin nodded. 100% mountain quaking fist. Rumble. The golden light exploded, as if a sun had exploded in the night sky. The powerful power of the earth turned into a shockwave, scattering the clouds in the sky for several miles. An extremely beautiful woman spat out a mouthful of blood and fell from the sky. Her body was covered in a layer of golden light. When the students in the square saw the scene of Enlin ruthlessly destroying a flower, they instantly exploded. Beast! How could he be so cruel to Goddess Sue? He attacked so decisively and mercilessly, completely disregarding their friendship. Has Godin really become a demon king? I'm going to call the police. This is a crime. Sigh, we've lost. Even with the combined strength of the entire school, we were still defeated by the demon king. And Lynn, hiss. Now that you mention it, it seems to be the case. Many of the students' expressions turned cold as they regained their senses. More than half of the students had teamed up against the prodigies of the various grades, but they had still been defeated by Lynn. This is too exaggerated. Should I say, as expected of Godin? This is an unprecedented feat, senior student, and Lynn is the legend of our school. A living legend. Many of the students who had been struck by Lynn's lightning couldn't bring themselves to hate him anymore. Instead, they all stared at the man on the screen with scorching reverence in their eyes. Even though Lynn was referred to as the Demon King by all of the students, he was still the most charismatic antagonist, and he still attracted countless fans. Lynn slowly descended from the sky, and his body swayed slightly, as if he was on the verge of collapsing. He had been battling non-stop for the entire day, unleashing his divine sense relentlessly, unleashing a wide range of attacks, and expending all of the energy in his body in an unbridled manner. He had swept through the entire forest of 1,000 peaks, and he was now on the brink of exhaustion. It's time to return. A faint smile appeared on Lynn's face as he looked up at the teachers in the sky. However, what was strange to him was that no teachers came to congratulate him. What's going on? Lynn's brows furrowed slightly. Right at this moment, a crimson streak of light imbued with a terrifying sharpness stabbed toward Lynn's back. Fifth year, Tang Shiman, please enlighten me. A voice sounded as if it were a celestial being. All of the students on the White Stone Plaza were shocked. The fifth-year students even let loose cries of excitement. It's student Tang Shiman. Tang Shiman hasn't made his move yet. Our mission to defeat the Demon King hasn't completely failed. This is great. Student Tang Shiman has finally made his move. Tears welled up in the eyes of some students. He's one of the most powerful students in our grade, and Lynn is already at his wit's end, so he might just be able to win this time. Some students clenched their fists tightly as they stared at the powerful sword technique on the screen with excitement on their faces. The crimson sword projection gave all of the students hope. It was as if it were the red sun at dawn, tearing through the darkness and giving the world a ray of light that could break through the darkness. Tang Shiman's sword projection was imbued with the highest level of sword technique he had attained in his entire life. It was a full-force attack that he had been accumulating for a long time. The crimson sword projection tore through the earth, and the space around it trembled as it left a scorching trail in its wake. Lin turned around with a surprised expression, and he extended a hand in front of himself. Boom! The crimson sword projection exploded, and a sharp screeching sound erupted as boundless sword intent burst forth, pulverizing the earth within a radius of several hundred meters. Tang Shiman's eyes widened in shock and incredulity. How could this be? My full-force attack was blocked by a bare hand? The crimson sword projection struck his hand, and a rainbow divine light flowed along its surface, but it wasn't even able to slice through the skin of his hand. The black sword projection fell and tore Tang Shiman's body apart. Blood splattered through the air, creating a tragic yet tragic sight. A golden protective barrier appeared around Tang Shiman's body, and he was in a daze. The tens of thousands of excited students on the White Stone Plaza felt as if a bucket of cold water had been poured over their heads as they fell into a peculiar silence. Their star of hope had been insta-killed, and Lin felt like he had to say something to show his respect, and a gratified expression appeared on his face. Well done, senior student Tang. You're the last one to be eliminated. Tang Shiman, well done my *S. I didn't even get a single head before I was insta-killed. Tears welled up in Tang Shiman's eyes with this in mind. He was supposed to make it into the top 5 of the Immortal Rankings board. So why did it end like this? Tang Shiman's body transformed into a streak of golden light, and slowly disappeared amid his grief and indignation. In the sky above, Dioscorea Kankingensis nodded with satisfaction. Although Tang Shimin only unleashed one strike, his sword intent was extremely profound and powerful. He has a good chance of making it into the top 10 of the Immortal Rankings board. Tang Shimin, combat capability, 680, achievement score, 0 and Lin. Combat capability, 3400, achievement score, 86510. Vice Principal Yuhua nodded silently as he looked at the two numbers. The two numbers were completely incomparable. Celestial Immortal Yuhua descended from the sky and appeared before Lin. He teleported Lin onto the platform on the Whitestone Plaza before raising Lin's arm high into the air. I hereby announce on behalf of the university that the free-for-all battle has officially concluded, and the champion is Lin. Close to 50,000 students stared up at the proud figure standing before them in silence for a few seconds. Lin was a little speechless as he looked at the students. Could it be that he had been too ruthless and all of his fans had left the team or become anti-fans? Could they at least give him some face? However, just as he was feeling a little gloomy, someone suddenly took the lead in clapping, which then erupted in a thunderous applause. Tens of thousands of students erupted into unprecedented cheers. Their voices were like tidal waves that reverberated throughout heaven and earth, and some students were even screaming. Immediately afterward, more and more people began to chant the same thing. In the end, all 50,000 students began to chant in unison. Congratulations to Demon King and Lin for becoming the champion. Congratulations to Demon King and Lin for becoming the champion. Congratulations to Demon King and Lin for becoming the champion. And Lin stared blankly at the countless students below him who were chanting his name to their heart's content. Some of the students' faces were still black from being struck by lightning, but all of them wore smiles on their faces. And Lin couldn't help but smile along with them. He cupped his fists in an earnest salute to all of the students below. Thank you for letting me win. These students were so adorable. Chapter 903. The free-for-all battle drew to a close, and Lin was undoubtedly number 1 on the Immortal Rankings board. Su Xiaolan also came in second place. Both of them were like cheaters. No matter which one of them had a battle record, it was enough to break the school's record since its founding. As for third place, it went to Su Qianyun, who had thrown her Immortal Wrath Fire Lotus. Her Immortal Wrath Fire Lotus didn't have much of an effect on Lin, but if any other Soul Formation final stage cultivator were to be struck by that attack, they would definitely be blasted into smithereens without any special defensive techniques, even if they were a Soul Formation final stage cultivator. The fourth place went to Zhuo Qiubing, the leader of the fifth-year students. As for the fifth place, that was a little more debatable. Yao Mingxi and Tang Shimin were both very good candidates. Yao Mingxi's combat capability wasn't as high as Tang Shimin's, but his achievement score was far superior to Tang Shimin's. After all, Tang Shimin's achievement score was 0, so I could do it too. The teachers calculated the scores and finally determined that Yao Mingxi came in 5th place, while Tang Shimin came in 6th place. That's right, Tang Shimin had missed out on his dream again. His dream of being in the top 5 of the Immortal Rankings board was no longer achievable. Tang Shimin bawled his eyes out in the toilet. Most importantly, he also learned why he hadn't encountered any monsters along the way. It was because he had been following behind Lin the entire time, following the map that Lin had cleared. Wherever Lin went, he followed. What a coincidence! Was this fate? Fate might guess. Tang Shimin was about to explode, and he grabbed onto Lin's sleeve as he howled with rage, demanding that Lin compensate him for the honor of being in the top 5 of the Immortal Rankings board. Lin's expression darkened. There was no way he could reason this out. Who knew that senior student Tang will be following him this entire time? Even though this had nothing to do with him, he couldn't bear to see senior student Tang's heartbroken expression when he couldn't even fulfill a simple wish before his graduation. How about this, senior student Tang? I'll give you something as an apology. Lin thought for a moment before speaking. Tang Shimin's eyes lit up. What is it? He could still vaguely recall that during the last free-for-all battle, Enlin had to compensate Chang'e for the mooncakes he had made for Lu Qianhuan and the others. At that time, he was extremely envious of Enlin. Now that Enlin said that he had something good for him, he couldn't help but feel a little excited. Enlin reached into the pocket of his robe and took out an exquisite object. Under the sun, it exuded a moving rainbow-like luster. Its entire body was round and flawless, and its edges were full of regular folds, like pieces of aggregated petals. At the bottom was a pure white support that could be held with one hand. It was a combination of simplicity and beauty. That's right, it was a lollipop. The system's products were definitely top-notch. Enlin was willing to give one of the 2 lollipops rewarded by the system to Tang Shimin. It could be said that he was very reluctant to part with one of his favorite lollipops. Thankfully, the lollipop given by the system was different from the lollipop that he was worried about. It was a normal lollipop. Otherwise, Enlin would definitely kill the system. There were 2 lollipops from the system, and it was giving him one just like that. A pained expression appeared on Enlin's face. Tang Shimin was on the verge of breaking down. Enlin, are you messing with me? You said you were going to give me a present, but in the end, you gave me a lollipop? Even if I, Tang Shimin, starve to death and come last in a free-for-all battle without encountering a single enemy, I won't accept your insincere charity. Hee hee, this is my collector's edition lollipop. If you don't want it, then I won't give it to you. Enlin was about to put away the lollipop. He was actually already regretting his decision, so he took this opportunity to renege on his promise. Wait, Tang Shimin caught sight of Enlin's expression of relief. Could it be that this lollipop really did have some miraculous effect? Thus, he extended a hand. Give me the lollipop. Enlin, Tang Shimin received a lollipop. He couldn't help but chuckle triumphantly at the sight of Enlin's dejected expression. Being able to make Enlin bleed a little would at least slightly soothe his wounded heart. Tang Shimin silently tore open the packaging of the lollipop and saw that the candy inside was glowing with rainbow light under the sunlight. There was also a faint aroma wafting through the air. A faint smile appeared on his face. Is this a rainbow lollipop? It looks pretty good. He placed the lollipop into his mouth as he spoke. It was also at this moment. His body suddenly shuddered violently as he let loose a cry of surprise. So sweet. That's right, a peculiar sweetness suddenly flowed from the tip of his tongue to his entire body. An intoxicated expression appeared on Tang Shimin's face, and his cheeks were flushed red as he licked the lollipop furiously, as if he were addicted to it and couldn't stop. So sweet. It feels so good my body is about to float. Ah. Tang Shimin continued to lick the lollipop as he moaned softly. Enlin's hair stood on end upon seeing this. This was a F*King lollipop? Why was the effect so horrifying? He had initially planned to use Senior Student Tang as a guinea pig. If it tasted good, he would eat one himself. However, he hesitated upon seeing Senior Student Tang's reaction. Enlin, right at this moment, a gentle male voice suddenly sounded. Enlin turned toward Tang Shimin to discover that he was licking the lollipop while looking at him with a loving expression. Enlin, Tang Shimin silently made his way toward Enlin. Don't come any closer. Enlin kicked Tang Shimin away. Tang Shimin's brows furrowed slightly, and he crawled up from the ground with a sullen expression as he sucked on his lollipop. Enlin, why did you kick me? Sigh. Enlin's lips twitched. What kind of F*King lollipop is this? So dangerous. So freakish. Do you feel anything strange right now? Enlin retreated a few steps with a cautious expression. Tang Shimin shook his head. No. He then turned toward Enlin, and a faint blush appeared on his face as he lowered his head with an apologetic expression. It's just that I feel like you're a lot more pleasing to the eye now. You're more handsome and charming than before. Enlin drew a sharp intake of breath. This symptom, terrifying. Enlin, sigh. Tang Shimin sucked on his lollipop before inching toward Enlin again. Enlin kicked Tang Shimin away again without any hesitation. How could you do this to me? How could you treat me like this? Tears shimmered in Tang Shimin's eyes as if he had countless grievances to vent. Can't we just have a peaceful relationship? And Lin chuckled. F***CK off. Finally, the lollipop was finished. Tang Shimin's eyes narrowed in bliss as he savored the sweet taste. I can feel that the power within my body has increased significantly. He turned toward Lin with a hearty smile. And Lin, thank you for your lollipop. It's such a good thing. I misunderstood you. And Lin faltered slightly before nodding. It's all right, as long as you're happy, senior student Tang. He had been observing the effects of the lollipop this entire time. Not long after Tang Shimin ate the lollipop, the peculiar emotions in his eyes suddenly disappeared, and his eyes also became pure and natural, which meant that he would only develop feelings for him when he ate the lollipop. A bold idea suddenly occurred to Lin. Chapter 904. That's right, Lin had a daring idea. There was only one lollipop left. How about he give it to Xiaolan? Lin suddenly chuckled in a perverted manner. Tang Shimin shuddered at the sight of Lin's mysterious smile. Junior brother, if there's nothing else, I'll be taking my leave. Lin was more than happy to see Tang Shimin leave. Piss off, piss off. Senior brother Tang left. Lin hesitated for a moment before taking a deep breath and starting to walk toward the dormitory. This was just an ordinary lollipop, but the other party would find him more handsome and charming after eating it. As the saying goes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If he were to become even more charming, wouldn't he become Chang'e? He was getting a little excited just thinking about it. He knocked on Su Xiaolan's door. Xiaolan, are your injuries better? Lin asked with concern. I'm almost fully recovered. Su Xiaolan took a shower after her battle and changed into a white dress embroidered with green bamboo. Her black hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall. Her skin was smooth and supple, and her eyebrows were like wisps of smoke. Lin felt his entire body relax as soon as he walked in. He felt like this was heaven. If the conditions allowed, he really wanted to live here. It was much better than the zoo next door. What? Do you feel bad? So you came to see me? Su Xiaolan asked with a teasing smile on her face. Lin's eyes glowed with a bright smile. Lin nodded with a serious expression. That's right. I came to see you and give you a small gift as an apology. What gift? Su Xiaolan's interest was piqued. Lin slowly pulled out a lollipop from his pocket and placed it on Su Xiaolan's table. Su Xiaolan looked at the lollipop and was startled. Then, she couldn't help but laugh. Lin, you're really sentimental. Giving a lollipop as an apology, she picked up the lollipop and said with a smile, but it's very interesting. I like it. Lin said matter-of-factly, of course. This lollipop is the only one left in this world. It's super delicious. I'll give it to you as a gift. Don't stand on ceremony. Su Xiaolan tore open the packaging of the lollipop, and her eyes lit up when she saw the colorful luster inside. She opened her pink lips and put the lollipop in her mouth. Suddenly, a very sweet smell filled his body. The woman's body trembled slightly, and her beautiful eyes became a little blurred. Lin looked at Su Xiaolan expectantly. How do you feel? Do I look even more handsome now? He didn't say it out loud. Su Xiaolan raised her head, and there seemed to be some kind of special emotion rippling in her eyes. A faint blush appeared on her face as she looked at Lin and nodded. It's delicious. Lin, how bite too? There was a conflicted look in her eyes, but in the end, she still took the colorful lollipop from her mouth. The lollipop was glittering and translucent, and there was even a sliver of translucent nectar swirling around it. Su Xiaolan never forgot to share beautiful things with Lin. When she heard that this was the only one left in this world, she felt like Lin shouldn't miss out on such a delicious lollipop. Lin's heart rate accelerated, and his breathing accelerated upon seeing this. Eat Xiaolan's lollipop? This is an indirect kiss. So exciting. Furthermore, would he develop special feelings towards Su Xiaolan after eating the lollipop from Su Xiaolan? Would she become even more beautiful and alluring? This was a very good idea to test. Lin opened his mouth without any hesitation and placed the lollipop from Su Xiaolan into his mouth. So sweet. A unique kind of sweetness flowed into his body like a rainbow, filling his entire body with a sense of bliss. This sweetness flowed into his body and into his consciousness, and it was also imbued with abundant energy. It was as if nothing in this world could compare to this lollipop. And Lin, let me have a taste. A soft and seductive voice sounded, and Lin raised his head to discover the yearning in Su Xiaolan's eyes. He struggled for a moment before handing the lollipop to Su Xiaolan. Thus, the two of them licked the lollipop one by one. Su Xiaolan's arms were already wrapped around Lin's arm, and her soft and delicate body was pressed tightly against Lin's. Her voluptuous chest rose and fell as a beautiful blush appeared on her neck. Her eyes were filled with love as she called out in a soft voice, "And Lin, I..." Her breathing accelerated as her cherry lips slowly inched closer to Lin's lips. Lin glanced at Su Xiaolan as he continued to sip on the lollipop. She was a noble and holy woman in the eyes of others, but she had never been so seductive before. Lin suddenly pushed Su Xiaolan away with an impatient expression. "Woman, don't get so close." Su Xiaolan faltered upon hearing this, and there was sorrow and disappointment on her face. However, she still walked toward the man. "Lin, I don't want a lollipop. I just want to..." And Lin's expression became serious as he pushed Su Xiaolan to the ground again. "Woman, get lost. Don't even think about taking advantage of me." Su Xiaolan. And Lin harumphed coldly as he silently walked over to the vanity mirror. A mesmerized expression appeared on his face as he looked at the man in the mirror. He sucked on his lollipop and rubbed his chest with one hand. His face was flushed red as he lamented, "What a peerlessly beautiful man. I never thought that there would be such a perfect man in this world." He stroked his own face as he stared at the man in front of him in a daze. Su Xiaolan strode over with a sullen expression, and she placed a hand on the man's shoulder. "And Lin, how can you treat me like this?" And Lin pushed Su Xiaolan away violently with an impatient expression. "Piss off." Looking at himself in the mirror, his breathing quickened, and he couldn't help but say, "In this world, only I am worthy of such a perfect me." Su Xiaolan was in despair. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she clutched her chest with her hand as she looked at Lin with a pained expression. Lin was truly in love. Before he knew it, he had already bent over and was about to kiss the man in Su Xiaolan's mirror. It was also at this moment that the lollipop was sucked dry. A mysterious energy fluctuation began to disappear. Lin's eyes gradually regained clarity. He looked at the man who was almost glued to the mirror, and he was given a huge fright as he immediately retreated. "Holy F***CK, what am I trying to do?" There was a look of horror on his face. He carefully recalled what had happened before he finally came to a realization. So that lollipop doesn't create feelings for the person in front of me after I lick it. Instead, it makes the person who eats the lollipop fall in love with the owner of the lollipop. That's why I fell in love with myself. Hee hee, that's a reasonable analysis. A clear and melodious voice rang in his ears. And Lin turned around. He discovered that Su Xiaolan was looking at him with a hint of a smile on her face, and there was a dangerous glint in her eyes. Chapter 905. As expected, raising a little fairy was a lot more useful than raising a dog. And Lin nodded. In that case, it was either a symptom of a breakthrough or a mental state that had been obstructed, thereby resulting in this state. However, Dabai had a different opinion. "I didn't see any changes in Little Lang's personality when he made his breakthrough. So why is little Tian acting like this? I think this is an inner demon." Shui Zhantian. He immediately wanted to hug Shui Zhantian's soft and fluffy body, but he didn't know what kind of state Shui Zhantian was in right now. In order to avoid disturbing Shui Zhantian's observation, he forcibly repressed this urge. And Lin, Tina flew a circle around Shui Zhantian before tapping his fluffy little head with a slender finger. He's very healthy. There are no abnormalities in his body. The scalding and piercing pain was still dominating his mind. That kind of experience was really too unbearable to recall. What the F***CK? Why was she so understanding? Everyone nodded upon hearing this. Kneeling on lava durian is one thing, but I can't even use the power of my divine body. Su Xiaolan's eyes narrowed slightly. Hee, little Na is such a good girl. And Lin stroked her golden hair with a gratified expression. By the way, what has little Tian been doing these past few days? Why haven't I seen him? And Lin rolled his eyes. I've been a bit short on money lately, so I've used all of the flavor enhancement from the frying pan to make stuffed buns. It would be fine if it were the former, but if it were the latter, then it could even trigger an inner demon or cause his Tao heart to become unstable, thereby leading to his death by the heavenly tribulation. Why can the heavens only punish me, but I can't retaliate? Jine and Lin, what happened to your knee? Tina immediately caught sight of Lin's injury, and she flew to Lin's side before unleashing a healing spell technique on his injury. When did Xiaolan become so violent? I'm so nice to her and fed her lollipops, but she's punishing me by making me kneel on a lava durian. Dabai ran away with an aggrieved expression. What did it say wrong again? Dogs always lick their wounds with their tongues. Saliva has the effect of disinfecting and speeding up the healing of wounds, and Lin felt that he had to take care of this matter and see if there was anything he could do to help. Dabai finally realized that he had been too hasty, causing Lin's favorable impression of him to drop, causing him to lose his position as the Empress. It also ran over to the man and stuck out its tongue. Big brother, and your knee is injured. Let me lick it for you. And Lin complained as he walked back to his small attic. Just like that, and Lin rode on Dabai and flew toward a certain lofty mountain on the floating continent with Little Red, Little Na, and Little Goo. You used to speak in idioms. How did you become a vulgar person who doesn't even have an idiom to speak in? And Lin's heart was throbbing with pain. Thump, 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 bang, bang, bang. Clatter, clatter, clatter. Puff, puff, puff. His legs were trembling, and both his knees had become bright red with a series of bloody gashes on them. 2 hours later, and Lin finally limped out of his attic. F***CK. Didn't he say he was going to help Shui Zhantian? Wasn't there something wrong with his focus? And Lin's brows furrowed slightly. There seemed to be one missing, and Lin's interest was piqued. Which mountain is it on? Let's go check it out. Shui Zhantian shook his head. Master, I don't really want to talk right now. I want some time alone. Shui Zhantian's eyes were bloodshot with rage as he spoke. I won't allow this to happen. Shui Zhantian, can't take this anymore. In summary, this was a case of unbearable domestic violence. That mountain was the tallest mountain on Xiaoxian United University. It was like a sharp sword piercing through the clouds, and it was the closest mountain to the sky. And Lin turned to the other beast pets with a curious expression. What happened to little Tian recently? The injuries on Lin's knees quickly healed. All the beast pets, sigh. Shui Zhantian looked up into the sky and heaved a forlorn sigh. Master, you should go home. You can't do anything about my problems. I'll have to solve them myself. A warm smile appeared on Su Xiaolan's face. It's not what I think it is. I thought you didn't know about the effects of a lollipop and were in a hurry to share it with us, so we fell prey to it. So, I was wrong. All the beast pets, him? He said he's about to make a breakthrough and is observing his own Tao on a mountain in the university. He immediately replied, as if he had grasped onto a life-saving straw. No, that's not it. I misunderstood. It's exactly what you think it is. I really didn't know that lollipops would have this kind of effect. You have to believe me, Xiaolan. Shouldn't Shui Zhantian's reply be to break through first, then crush the heavens? And Lin. Dabai immediately ran around Lin excitedly as soon as he entered the room. He stuck out his tongue as if he was playing dirty. Shui Zhantian paused momentarily before replying, Don't wild beasts like us have to transcend golden void lightning to progress to the heaven creation stage? And Lin's lips twitched. F***CK off. And Lin was dumbstruck for a second. Dogs only knew how to eat and sleep, but little fairies were like little cotton-padded jackets, giving him a sense of warmth. I then discovered a very serious problem. Shui Zhantian looked up into the sky with indignation and rage on his face. Why is the heavens able to strike me with lightning all the time during my tribulation transcendence, while I can only endure in silence? Shui Zhantian. Are you not going to leave? Big Brotherin, you're finally back. Congratulations on becoming the champion of the free-for-all battle. Do you want to celebrate with some delicious food tonight? Woof. I want to watch you make your breakthrough and stay by your side. And Lin replied in a resolute voice. Shui Zhantian's heart was finally touched by Enlin's words. All right, master, let's be honest with each other then. Enlin was ecstatic upon hearing this. Tell me if you have any problems, and I'll definitely help you resolve them. Only after a short while did he realize who was missing. Where was the guy who was going to crush the heavens? Enlin was quite perplexed. He felt like Shui Zhantian was a little depressed. Don't be too alarmed, master. It's just a breakthrough. It's not like it can crush the heavens. Shui Zhantian spoke in a calm voice. Enlin was ecstatic. Little Tian, congratulations on becoming a civilized, snow-soul beast again. Why? He looked around the house to find that aside from little Na, Xiao Hong was happily photosynthesizing. By silently found a place to lie down, and little Gu had transformed into a little butterfly and was fluttering down onto a little red flower. It was quite a sight to behold. His legs gave out from under him, and he almost collapsed to the ground. Xiaolan, listen to me. It's not what you think. Dabai, Xiao Hong, and Tina all shook their heads with confusion on their faces. Little Tian, I heard you're about to make a breakthrough. Enlin flew over to Shui Zhantian's side. Enlin faltered upon hearing this. Even though he had always managed his beast pets in a free-range manner, he had to be concerned about his beast pets' breakthroughs as their master. Little Tian has been looking up at the sky on the mountain recently, and he doesn't speak much. Perhaps he entered a special state of mind during his breakthrough? Xiao Hong speculated in her sweet voice. A fluffy white ball lay on the highest peak of the mountain with its intricate wings tucked away, and it stared blankly up at the sky with its big, round eyes. Chapter 906. He had finally discovered the crux of the problem. However, Enlin didn't know how to solve this problem. What the F***CK was this about being struck by lightning and not being able to retaliate? Who the hell could F***CK the heavens during their tribulation transcendence? Enlin was extremely depressed. He had promised Shui Zhantian that he would solve this problem, but he really didn't know how to F***CK the heavens. This was such a difficult problem. Shui Zhantian looked at Enlin's expression and spoke in a forlorn voice. See, master? I told you there's nothing you can do. This is the heavens. The heavens dictate what must be done, and no one can resist. If it wants to strike you, you have to obediently endure it. There's no other way out. Enlin spoke with difficulty. So you'd rather not make a breakthrough than endure the heavenly tribulation? Shui Zhantian looked up into the sky again. Not exactly, but I can't help it. Enlin was very tired. This beast pet problem was extremely difficult to solve. How to make Shui Zhantian endure the lightning strikes was a difficult problem. After a while, Enlin's eyes lit up, and he stroked Shui Zhantian's head before speaking in a meaningful and heartfelt voice. Little Tian, I want to teach you the meaning of an idiom. What idiom? Shui Zhantian's eyes finally lit up upon hearing this. This idiom is... Enlin looked directly into Shui Zhantian's eyes and enunciated each and every word. Endure hardships in order to gain courage. Boom! Enlin's words were like a bolt of lightning that caused Shui Zhantian's body to tremble. As the king of idioms, how could he not know the meaning of this idiom? He was trying to tell him to endure humiliation for the sake of his mission. Think about it. You can't retaliate now, but you might be able to after you become powerful enough. Enlin continued. Endure the heavenly tribulation first and endure humiliation for the sake of your mission. Only when you become powerful enough will you truly have a chance to slash the heavens. Shui Zhantian's body trembled, and he had clearly been moved by Enlin's words. Enlin added fuel to the fire. Isn't there a saying that goes like this? A gentleman's revenge is a dish best served cold. You, Shui Zhantian, are destined to slay the heavens, so you shouldn't let the heavens stand in your way. Enlin's words were impassioned and full of fighting spirit. It had to be said that Shui Zhantian had indeed been persuaded, but he was still conflicted. But I, Shui Zhantian, only want to avenge myself. And Lin, in the end, I can't take this lying down. Being struck by lightning like an idiot, yet I can't do anything about it. This will become a shadow in my heart. Shui Zhantian raised his head and took a deep breath. Even if we can make the heavens pay a small price, it would be enough. At the very least, it would prove that the heavens can be defied and resisted. And Lin could see an unyielding battle intent burning in Shui Zhantian's eyes. He knew that Shui Zhantian was serious. As long as the heavens paid a small price, and Lin's eyes lit up, and he said with a smile, "Little Tian, do you want to make the heavens pay a price? I can help you." Shui Zhantian raised his head to stare at Lin with astonishment etched on his face, and his voice trembled slightly. "Master, you have a way? Do you know any secrets regarding tribulation transcendence?" And Lin asked with a mysterious expression. "Master, don't keep me guessing." Shui Zhantian's eyes widened with faint blue patterns, and he flapped his intricate wings with excitement, appearing especially adorable. And Lin smiled. "You also know that the son of Emperor Yi Deng of the Blood Tribe died to tribulation lightning, and I was the one who killed him. At the time, I blocked countless bolts of tribulation lightning for him, but the lightning didn't strike the right person, and it became more and more powerful. Do you know why?" Shui Zhantian faltered for a few seconds before replying with an excited expression. "The heavens are angry." And Lin clapped his hands together and nodded. "That's right. It's exactly because the tribulation lightning was blocked that the heavens became enraged, which is why the tribulation lightning became so much more powerful. At the time, we were obstructing the actions of the heavens." Shui Zhantian flapped his wings excitedly. "So that's how it is. Angering the heavens. Ha, it sounds great. It's such a joyous thing to be able to do something that pisses off the heavens. That's exactly what you're talking about." And Lin nodded with a smile. "Furthermore, when we obstruct the tribulation lightning, the power of the tribulation lightning will increase, and the heavens will expend a little more energy. According to the law of conservation of energy, isn't that the equivalent of expending a little more energy to make the heavens expend a little more energy?" Boom! And Lin's words exploded in Shui Zhantian's mind like a clap of thunder. Shui Zhantian flapped his wings as his eyes glowed with excitement. "Brilliant! Master, your words have enlightened me. A bright future has appeared in front of me." A smile remained on Lin's face as the sun shone down upon him, making him appear as if he had been anointed with a holy light. He extended a hand towards Shui Zhantian before speaking in a clear and confident voice. "Little Tian, are you transcending your tribulation? I'll enrage the heavens with you." A prideful smile appeared on Shui Zhantian's face. "Come, make the heavens tremble." Crack! A crisp crack sounded, as if a certain shackle had been broken, and the great Tao of heaven and earth trembled slightly, as if it had resonated with something. Boom! Shui Zhantian's aura soared into the heavens. "Listening to you is more rewarding than cultivating for 10 years. Master, I'm going to make a breakthrough now. Little Tian, transcend your tribulation to your heart's content. I'll be by your side to enrage the heavens." An elated smile finally appeared on Lin's face as he looked at Shui Zhantian. Tina, Dabai, and Xiaohong all stared blankly at the scenes unfolding before their eyes. Dabai faltered for a long while before speaking. "It's over. These two have both gone insane. They've decided to increase the power of their tribulation lightning woof." Tina was also in disbelief. "Isn't tribulation transcendence for soul formation stage cultivators very dangerous? I've heard that over 90% of cultivators at the soul formation pinnacle stage will be reduced to ashes by the golden void lightning. Why would they dare to increase the difficulty?" "That's why I said they're crazy," Xiaohong said in her sweet voice. "Let's get away from them so they don't get in their way. It's very dangerous to play with crazy people." As expected of Big Sister Hong, her words were always reliable. Tina and Dabai were also thinking the same thing. They immediately retreated to a distance of over a kilometer. Vital energy surged for over 50 kilometers, and the inky black clouds in the sky covered an area of several dozen kilometers, obscuring the entire sky as terrifying lightning might gathered. This terrifying commotion naturally alerted all of the students and teachers on the campus. Vice Principal Yuhua was the most dutiful of them all, and he immediately rushed to the forefront of the commotion. He was then greeted by the sight of Shui Zhantian, who was preparing to transcend his tribulation, and Enlin, who was cheering him on. His lips twitched involuntarily. It's him again. It's his people again. Not only is he making a breakthrough, but Xiao Chou, Xiao Hong, the white-scaled wolf god, and Shui Zhantian are all transcending their tribulation at the school. What kind of place do they think this school is? Chapter 907. Heaven and earth transformed as vital energy surged violently. In the past, all of the teachers and students would have turned pale with fright. However, they were all looking out the window with indifference, as if they were already used to this. Is someone going to transcend their tribulation again? That's right. From the looks of it, it should be a soul formation stage or return to void stage tribulation. It's very similar to the tribulation transcendence of that wolf god. Then it's definitely not our students. It's probably senior student and Lin's beast pets again, right? It must be that super adorable snow soul beast transcending its tribulation. I really want to go and have a look, a female student said with anticipation on her face. How about we apply for a leave of absence? To say it's my period? Another female student mustered up the courage to suggest with a blush on her face. A female teacher's chest constricted upon hearing this. Can you please keep your voices down when you're discussing something? Hey, I'm not deaf. In another classroom, a man who was talking excitedly about karma glanced at the sky outside the window and smiled faintly. Students, when you think that the person you are destined to meet has appeared, don't hesitate and go after him decisively. Otherwise, you will only be left with regrets and regrets. All of the students were perplexed. Why was the teacher suddenly talking about this? Teacher, your destiny has already appeared, so you have to grab onto this opportunity. This is the best time to observe your Tao. Hence, this is a self-study period. See you later. The man chuckled and tore open a spatial passageway on the spot. He stepped into the spatial door openly and disappeared. All of the students in the classroom were dumbstruck. Although I think what the teacher said makes sense, is he's skipping class openly. He's probably watching Enlin's beast pets transcend their tribulations. He's always there to gain inspiration. Then with the class representative pause for 3 seconds before replying, teacher is indirectly encouraging us to grab onto our destiny. So do what you want to do and grab onto that destiny. Oh, all of the students came to a sudden realization. So he was saying that they were free to do whatever they wanted. Thus, the entire classroom was instantly emptied. Who the F***CK would stay in the classroom if they had a chance to spectate? Thus, a group of spectators slowly gathered at the location of the tribulation transcendence. Around the mountain peak, there was a barrier set up by the teachers to prevent the lightnings might from affecting the innocent students. Vice Principal Yuhua looked at Shui Zhantian and Enlin with furrowed brows. Why is Enlin still standing there? Isn't he afraid of disrupting Shui Zhantian's tribulation transcendence? Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan, who had just skipped class, looked at the figure with a profound smile on his face. Looks like classmate Enlin is going to show us something amazing again. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, causing the entire world to darken. Bolts of golden lightning swam in the sky like golden dragons, releasing extremely terrifying lightning might. Shui Zhantian flapped his little wings and hovered in midair. He pointed his pointy wings toward the sky as he let loose a torrent of abuse. F***CK and T% MMP. And Lin had a gratified look on his face, but all the teachers and students in the school were dumbfounded. What kind of operation was it to point at the sky and curse before transcending the tribulation? What a huge grudge. Boom, boom, boom. The sky seemed to stir as golden lightning began to surge. Tribulation transcendence to the soul formation stage required 49 bolts of tribulation lightning, But tribulation transcendence to the return to void stage required 81 bolts of golden void lightning. Even the most supremely talented prodigy could fall to golden void lightning. Celestial immortal Ming Yuan's eyes lit up at the sight of Shui Zhantian hurling abuse into the sky. This was the first time he had seen such a spectacular opening. Boom! A bolt of golden lightning flashed through the sky before striking Shui Zhantian's body. Terrifying lightning might course through the round ball of flesh, wreaking havoc upon its body. Shui Zhantian chortled with glee. Ha ha! Trash tribulation lightning. I could take another 10,000 bolts of this level of attack. He then began to hurl abuse into the sky again. Classmate and Lin's beast pets are all so special. Vice Principal Yuhua felt as if 10,000 mythological beasts were stampeding over his heart upon hearing Shui Zhantian's words. Celestial immortal Ming Yuan picked up a photographic crystal and began to take pictures with an excited expression. Shui Zhantian has launched a second wave of verbal attacks against the heavens. Will the heavens be angry? Will the power of the tribulation lightning increase by leaps and bounds? Boom! The second bolt of divine lightning fell. Unfortunately, this bolt of divine lightning was only slightly more powerful than the last bolt, and it was increasing in a regular pattern, much to celestial immortal Ming Yuan's disappointment. A disdainful smile appeared on Shui Zhantian's face as he continued to hurl abuse. The beautiful woman sitting on the massive book was astonished. This no-soul beast is so adorable, but why is it cursing so vulgarly? Teacher Yuing, it's called contrast cuteness. A female student explained with a dainty smile as she listened with rapt attention. Madagascar stared speechlessly at the female student with concern welling up in his heart. Shui Zhantian didn't repeat a single sentence when he cursed the heavens. There were so many adorable students watching from the sidelines. Would they be infected? If they were to be led astray, the students would start hurling insults at one another as soon as they met. That would be an unimaginable scene. One bolt of divine lightning after another fell, and Shui Zhantian was like an unyielding warrior against the heavens. Not only did he unleash all types of defensive spell techniques, but he also couldn't stop himself from hurling insults at the heavens. The golden void lightning became more and more powerful, and at the 70th bolt of divine lightning, each and every one of them was capable of pulverizing the earth within a radius of several hundred feet into dust. The mountain that Shui Zhantian was situated on was getting lower and lower. Vice Principal Yuhua stared at the mountain peak that was about to be obliterated by the lightning with a pained expression, and he silently made a note in his notebook. Another protected heritage site was gone. He had to get compensation from Enlin. Shui Zhantian's body was enshrouded in a white barrier of ice and snow, which could effectively nullify the power of the heavenly tribulation. Furthermore, his body was already extremely powerful to begin with, so he didn't sustain much damage even after enduring over 70 bolts of lightning. Gradually, Shui Zhantian grew tired of cursing. He turned toward the man beside him with anticipation in his eyes. The 80th bolt of divine lightning tore through the air like a golden divine sword descending from the heavens toward Shui Zhantian at an extremely terrifying speed. At this moment, a figure appeared before Shui Zhantian before spreading open his arms. Boom! Golden lightning exploded and coursed through his body. Then, it was instantly devoured by Kirin, who was in his sea of vital energy. Countless people's eyes widened with incredulity as they stared at the scenes unfolding before their eyes. Ow, how dare he! Vice Principal Yuhua also drew a sharp intake of breath. Actively interfering with the heavenly tribulation would make the tribulation even more terrifying. It was exactly because of this that people transcending tribulations had to stand guard in order to prevent external interference during their tribulation transcendence. But now, Enlin was actively interfering with his beast pet's tribulation transcendence. He was trying to get his beast pet killed. All of the teachers and students stared at Enlin and Shui Zhantian with dumbstruck expressions on their faces. The heavens really seemed to have been enraged as a thunderous and terrifying roar erupted. In the end, several extremely powerful bolts of golden void lightning began to converge as one, unleashing an extremely terrifying lightning might. Golden light tore through the dark clouds and lit up the entire world. The space around them began to crumble as inky black rifts appeared, and the sky seemed to be on the verge of collapse. To everyone's surprise, Shui Zhantian didn't display any resentment or blame. Instead, he chortled with glee as an unprecedented light burst forth from his eyes. "Ha ha! It looks like the heavens are very angry. Come, Shui Zhantian, am going to cut through the heavens with my sword today." Following his thunderous roar, his flawed Tao heart was suddenly perfected. Is he insane? Why is he so happy? Some of the students were perplexed. The teachers also drew a sharp intake of breath. This is the most suicidal tribulation transcendence I've ever seen. It was also at this moment that a powerful pillar of white energy erupted from Shui Zhantian's perfected body. The pillar of light soared into the sky and clashed with the golden lightning. Chapter 908. Shui Zhantian took the initiative to attack the golden void lightning in the sky. The golden void lightning seemed to have been stimulated by something, and it was compressed to the extreme before also falling from the sky, slicing through Shui Zhantian's white pillar of light as if it were a hot knife through butter. The space in the wake of the golden void lightning cracked open as a series of inky black, chaotic rifts began to appear. Shui Zhantian was not fearful in the slightest as he roared with laughter. In that instant, Lin looked at Shui Zhantian's departing figure, and he felt as if he were looking at the main character of a cultivator who defied the natural order. He threw his head back and laughed heartily in the face of the heavenly tribulation with domineering confidence. Of course, the premise was that one had to ignore its super cute appearance, no matter what expression it made. The terrifying might of the lightning made all of the spectating teachers and students' breathing falter. The power of this golden void lightning had transcended beyond the return to void stage. Shui Zhantian also knew that he might not be able to withstand this bolt of divine lightning, but it didn't matter. He had already angered the heavens, and he wasn't going to be beaten for nothing. Instead, he was going to perish in a battle against the heavens. It had no regrets about dying like this. Lin stretched out his finger the moment the heavenly lightning struck. Lightning manipulation technique. When transcending his own lightning tribulation, the lightning manipulation technique came in handy. However, it was very difficult to help outsiders control the lightning tribulation. During Lu Qianhuan's tribulation, he could only control the direction. Now, he was helping Shui Zhantian transcend his tribulation, but he was hoping to slow down the tribulation lightning a little. That's right, he had to slow down the golden void lightning so that it wouldn't crash into Shui Zhantian's body. That way, he would be able to minimize the risk to his life. Now that Lin had become more powerful, he might be able to use his lightning manipulation technique. Slow down, slow down. The lightning on his fingertips flourished as he used all of his strength. Rumble. His sea of vital energy suddenly surged, and Kirin opened his bright eyes. He also pointed a finger toward the sky, as if he were the ruler of all lightning. Buzz invisible waves enveloped heaven and earth. The bolt of golden void lightning falling from the sky suddenly slowed down to a crawl. This scene made all the onlookers dumbfounded once again. They could even see the tiny arcs of lightning at the edge of the dazzling golden lightning. Madagascar murmured, "Am I seeing things? Why do I feel like the lightning is moving in slow motion?" One of the students was speechless. "Teacher, are your eyes playing tricks on you? Otherwise, the divine lightning would have struck that adorable snow-soul beast while we were speaking." Shui Zhantian turned to Lin with a grateful expression. As expected, only by following his master could he truly break through this world. It had made the right choice back then. Thus, Shui Zhantian flew toward the terrifying bolt of divine lightning without any hesitation. Countless golden lightning bolts exploded like balls of lightning, and the terrifying lightning bolts annihilated the space within a radius of several hundred meters into a void. Shui Zhantian's snowy white fur had been charred black by the golden void lightning, and he had been reduced to a black ball. This scene caused the hearts of everyone present to twitch violently. Disfigurement, Shui Zhantian roared as he spread his wings, and his Tao intent and power erupted forth to resist the terrifying golden void lightning. Unlin gritted his teeth, and his fingertips trembled slightly as he did his best to slow down the golden void lightning. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan noticed this. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan's body trembled as his eyes glowed with excitement. So that's how it is. What a terrifying power to be able to affect the heavenly tribulation. This is going to be an epic-making power. In the end, all of the golden void lightning fell. Shui Zhantian withstood the final wave of golden void lightning and survived. He looked up at the dissipating clouds in the sky and chortled with glee, as if he had won some kind of victory. In the end, he fell to the ground and landed in Lin's arms. Master, it feels so good to battle the heavens. Faint blue ripples shimmered in Shui Zhantian's eyes, as if there were tears shimmering in them. He closed his eyes in exhaustion as he spoke. Lin's lips twitched. He couldn't understand why this black ball felt so good, so he silently fed it a high-rank spirit pill before returning to the cave. Dabai, Xiaohong, and Tina all followed along. Su Xiaolan, Su Qinyan, and all of the teachers also flew over to offer their congratulations. Vice Principal Yuhua swallowed his words of compensation at the sight of the Snow Soul Beast's pitiful state. After all, everyone was offering their congratulations, but he was asking for compensation. What the hell was going on? However, he felt quite stifled when he looked at the mountain that had been razed to the ground by the golden void lightning. After returning to his dorm room, Lin placed Shui Zhantian into the coffin. Of course, he wasn't doing this to bury him. Instead, he was doing this to speed up his recovery. The regenerative abilities of the immortal tool, the Blood Soul Jade coffin, were nothing to scoff at. A red light erupted forth in a radius of 5 kilometers, absorbing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in a frenzy to heal Shui Zhantian's injuries. Shui Zhantian's char-black fur began to fall off as pristine white fur grew over his body. Everyone finally heaved a heavy sigh of relief upon seeing this. If Shui Zhantian really had turned into charcoal, I probably wouldn't be hugging him anymore, Su Xiaolan said in an honest voice. If he really was that black, then I wouldn't have kicked him around like a ball. Dabai sighed with emotion. In this era where appearance was everything, even if Shui Zhantian were to progress to the return to void stage, he wouldn't be as popular as he was when he was only at the soul formation stage. This was the stark reality. Lin finally turned toward the man beside him with a curious expression. Teacher Ming Yuan, why are you still here? That's right, all the other teachers had left, but Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan had followed Lin into his dorm room for some reason. I have a bold idea. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan stared at Lin with a scorching gaze. Lin was a little uncomfortable under his stare. Please calm down, teacher. I have a complete set of celestial court laws. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan was speechless. Don't get any funny ideas. I witnessed the entire process of you helping Shui Zhantian transcend his tribulation, and I feel like your power shouldn't be buried. With your power, we can make the human race prosper and usher in a new era of cultivation. Lin blinked. I'd like to hear the details. You also know that over 90% of soul formation stage cultivators perish during their tribulation transcendence to the return to void stage due to being unable to withstand the power of the golden void lightning. However, you have the power to slow down the descent of the golden void lightning. You have to realize that many cultivators on the brink of death can be reborn by slowing down the speed of the golden void lightning. You can use this power to usher in a new era of cultivation. Celestial Immortal Ming Yuan became more and more excited as he spoke, and a scorching light appeared in his eyes. Lin faltered slightly upon hearing this. He suddenly felt like this was feasible. It wasn't that he was willing to help others. Rather, he felt like this was a massive business opportunity. Chapter 909. Was tribulation transcendence scary? It was very scary, because the slightest misstep could result in one perishing within the tribulation. But why were there still so many cultivators who were willing to do so? This was actually the result of their persistent pursuit of Tao. What was the purpose of cultivating? Some wanted to live forever. Some wanted to be free and unfettered. Some wanted to see the end of Tao. There were countless reasons, but the one constant was that they all wanted to continue down this path. Advancing to the pinnacle of the soul formation stage meant that there was a very good chance that one would perish, but there was also a chance that one could attain a higher cultivation base, greater power, broader horizons, and a lifespan of over 1,000,000 years. Almost no one could resist this temptation. What if Lin possessed a power that could drastically increase his chances of successfully transcending tribulation transcendence? Countless living beings at the pinnacle of the soul formation stage would definitely go crazy over this. After all, how the hell was he supposed to cultivate if he lost his life? A power that could increase his chances of successfully transcending tribulation transcendence was the best thing he could have. And Lin smiled. Thank you for your advice, Teacher Mingyuan. I think this is a good idea. A gratified smile appeared on celestial immortal Ming Yuan's face. I can sense that our human race, no, I should say the entire continent, is facing a calamity, so it would be great if Mr. Lin could do his best to help the continent. And Lin replied with a righteous expression, of course. Everyone is responsible for the rise and fall of the entire continent. Why can't I go through fire and water for the sake of this world? Ha ha. Student Lin, I was right about you. Celestial immortal Ming Yuan looked at the man before him with a gratified expression. Ha! You're far too kind, Teacher Ming Yuan. This is what I should do. And Lin joined his hands in salute. Time is of the essence, so I'll be taking my leave now to discuss the specifics with the Celestial Arch. All right, go on. Celestial immortal Ming Yuan nodded before handing a photographic crystal to Lin. This contains the complete recording of you helping Shui Zhantian transcend his tribulation. I'm sure it'll be very useful to you. And Lin was ecstatic, and he accepted the photographic crystal before expressing his gratitude. I'll be going now, teacher. Go, for the sake of a new era of cultivators. Celestial immortal Ming Yuan smiled in relief. He looked at Lin's receding figure and sighed. I didn't expect student Lin to be so concerned about this matter. It's really a blessing for the mainland, the heart of the celestial court. And Lin arrived at the palace where the Celestial Arch held his daily meetings. A celestial maiden dressed in a red dress came out to welcome him. Fellow Taoist and Lin, why did you go to sell steamed buns yesterday? We sisters miss your delicacies very much. The celestial maiden smiled faintly. Her lips were red and her teeth were pearly. Her face was radiant, and at the same time, she was beautiful and enchanting. But at the same time, she carried a cold arrogance. And Lin waved his hand with a hint of fear in his eyes. Celestial Maiden Tian Shou, don't come. When the Celestial Arch found out that you organized a group to come to my store for an auction, he looked as if he wanted to tear me apart. I still have nightmares about it, even now. That's right. This celestial maiden in a red dress was none other than the eldest sister of the 7 celestial maidens. Celestial Maiden Tian Shou was overjoyed to hear this, and she inched closer to Lin. An alluring fragrance wafted through the air as her snowy white dress swayed in front of her, creating a spectacular sight to behold. And Lin looked straight ahead, but he sighed with emotion in his heart. Were the 7 celestial maidens ranked according to the size of their body parts? The eldest sister was an E-rank powerful being, which was slightly inferior to a Grandmaster construction cultivator. The second and third sister were D-rank powerful beings. The fourth was C-rank powerful being. The fifth was B-rank powerful being. The sixth was A-rank powerful being. And the 7th was of the bosom stage, ahem. This was obviously just a joke. To be fair, Lin Junjun's figure was quite good, but it was still slightly inferior to her sister's. Just as Enlin was immersed in his fantasies, celestial maiden Tion Sho had already inched her lips closer to Enlin's ear, and she spoke in a seductive voice. Then, why don't we exchange using another method? Trade? Enlin shuddered upon hearing this. Was this some sort of unspoken rule? How terrifying! As a righteous man, he had to deal with situations like this without any hesitation. Enlin immediately replied, "What kind of trade? Please tell me." Celestial Maiden. Celestial Maiden Tion Sho's beautiful, watery eyes narrowed slightly as she said in a low voice, "To tell you the truth, Father has already withheld all of our pocket money from us, so we may not be able to patronize your restaurant in exchange for spirit stones. However, we have another way to repay you." Enlin swallowed silently. Even though waves of shock surged through his heart, he still forced himself to maintain a calm expression. What way? Never would he have thought that being a chef would bring him such benefits. 7 Celestial Maidens. Come at me. Don't take pity on me, just because I'm a delicate flower. Celestial Maiden Tion Sho's eyes shimmered like a little kitten that had just stolen a fish. Our celestial court has a heavenly peach garden that produces heavenly peaches. There are spirit peaches that ripen once every 100 years, as well as immortal peaches that ripen once every 1,000 years. We 7 sisters have come up with a plan. How about we trade an immortal peach for one of your dishes? PFFF. Enlin almost threw up a mouthful of blood. He turned to the woman beside him with incredulity on his face. You're planning to steal an immortal peach for a dish. Tion Sho pursed her lips as she glared at Enlin. We 7 celestial maidens are responsible for guarding the heavenly peach garden, so it's our property to begin with. How can we steal an immortal peach for a dish? Enlin's lips twitched. Does the celestial the arch agree to this? Tion Sho blushed. If he agreed to this, then why would I be telling you this in secret? Enlin's chest constricted upon hearing this. If the celestial the arch didn't agree to this, then you still dared to trade a heavenly peach for a dish. What do you mean it's not stealing? This is clearly embezzling from inside the house. Shocking. Why did the 7 celestial maidens steal a heavenly peach? I'm sorry. I'm not interested in a heavenly peach. Enlin repressed the pain in his heart as he refused in a roundabout manner. He didn't want to make headlines in the celestial court, and he certainly didn't want to be slapped to death by the celestial arch. I see. That's a real pity. A disappointed expression appeared on celestial maiden Tion Sho's face. However, Enlin wasn't disappointed in the slightest. In fact, he was ecstatic that his life had been spared. Oh yeah, by the way, Enlin, why are you in such a hurry to find my father? Celestial maiden Tion Sho suddenly asked. Enlin instantly came to his senses upon hearing this, and he slapped his own head. I almost forgot. I have a method that can drastically increase the success rate of tribulation transcendence, and I want the celestial arch to help me promote it. Drastically increase the success rate of tribulation transcendence. Tion Sho exclaimed with a hand over her mouth. Enlin nodded. That's right. So, I want the celestial arch to use the power of the celestial court to promote this method to the entire continent. Tion Sho's alluring eyes lit up, and a faint smile appeared on her face. As expected, the man that 7th sister has taken a liking to is truly extraordinary. To think that he's even able to master a method like this. Enlin's expression remained unchanged. There are a lot of celestial maidens who have taken a liking to me. After all, I'm so outstanding. Tion Sho, all right, this man didn't need any praise. He knew how to praise himself. Chapter 9-10. Celestial Maiden Tion Sho led Enlin into the conference palace. The legendary conference palace of the Heavenly Palace wasn't all that lavish and extravagant. Instead, it was a very casual place with carved wooden screens and elegant tea tables. That was all. There were also a few paintings by Lin Junjun, which were probably the most beautiful things in the conference palace. The celestial arch didn't wear his imperial robe. Instead, he wore a white robe with a black belt and a jade fan in his hand as he welcomed Enlin with a smile. Enlin had met the celestial arch a few times already, but he was still very nervous. This was mainly because he had earned money from his daughter a few times, so he was a little embarrassed. However, the celestial arch was surprisingly amiable, which made Enlin feel a lot more at ease. Enlin displayed the image from the photographic crystal for the celestial arch to see, and his eyes lit up even more. Mr. Enlin, your lightning manipulation ability can also slow down the speed of tribulation lightning, the celestial arch exclaimed. He had witnessed Enlin helping Lu Qianhuan transcend her tribulation. At the time, he could only control the direction of the divine lightning, but he was now able to control its speed. That's right, I do have this ability. Enlin nodded in acknowledgement. That's great. This is the fortune of the entire world. The celestial arch chortled with glee. Cultivators would not be able to handle the violent energy surging into their bodies at once. But when the violent energy flowed into their bodies at a slower rate, the cultivators would be able to slowly resist it. Enlin pondered for a moment before replying. However, I need some compensation for using this ability to help cultivators transcend their tribulations. The celestial arch nodded with a smile. If you want something, you have to give something in return. Nothing can be taken for granted, so it's very reasonable for you to ask for compensation. Enlin was a little surprised to hear that the celestial arch was being so reasonable. He paused for 2 seconds before replying. I've decided to let you use the power of the celestial court to publicize my abilities to the entire continent, and I'll charge you 1,000,000 spirit stones for each session. The celestial arch drew a sharp intake of breath. 1,000,000 spirit stones for each session? Was his appetite really that big? What if there are soul formation stage cultivators who don't have that much money? The celestial arch asked with a sincere expression. One had to realize that ordinary return to void stage mighty figures might not even have 1,000,000 spirit stones, so it would be very difficult for soul formation stage cultivators to come up with that much money. Enlin said indifferently, I don't have that much money, so I'll raise it slowly. The reason why cultivators did not have that many spirit stones on them was because they could not help but spend them the moment they had them. Hills, immortal fruits, weapons. They're only spirit stones if they're stored in storage rings. However, if they're used to invest in oneself, then that's true strength. If a cultivator at the peak of the soul formation stage really works hard to save spirit stones, it's still possible for him to save 1,000,000 spirit stones. If that doesn't work, he can always borrow money. We can slowly earn spirit stones, but we only have one life. Don't you agree? The celestial arch was finally moved by Enlin's words. Then how do you guarantee the success rate? The celestial arch asked. In any case, I can only slow down the tribulation lightning to the speed shown on the crystal screen. As for whether or not I can withstand it, that will depend on the cultivator's luck. Enlin replied with a smile. The celestial arch fell silent as he waved his azure jade fan. That's not enough. Even with the celestial court as a guarantor, your power is still not enough to attract some cultivators. If you're going to do it, then do it to the best of your ability. Can we use some kind of method to make them think that you're very reliable? Enlin stroked his chin before a smile suddenly appeared on his face. No problem. I'll raise the price to 1,500,000 spirit stones. Gasp. What the hell is that? The celestial Thearcha's eyes widened. Let me finish. Enlin waved a hand before continuing. Then, we'll make a promise to guarantee that if the cultivator fails to transcend the tribulation, then we'll immediately return 1,500,000 spirit stones to the designated successor without taking a single cent. How's that sound? The celestial arch faltered for a second before clapping his hands together with his fan. Brilliant. Celestial Maiden Tian Shou was a little perplexed upon hearing this. Wouldn't raising the price mean that fewer people would be willing to ask Enlin for help? Also, that promise to return all the spirit stones if the tribulation fails is a bad deal no matter how I look at it. The celestial arch smiled. You don't understand. Mr. Enlin is only raising the price to guarantee the success of the tribulation. Adding a promise to guarantee the success of the tribulation and return all the spirit stones if the tribulation fails, doesn't that give people the impression that he's very confident and reliable? However, his power hasn't actually changed at all, nor has his success rate. As for what you said about losing money if the tribulation fails, do you know that just a promise to return all the spirit stones if the tribulation transcends fails will definitely attract more than twice as many cultivators as before? We'll be able to earn a lot more from the cultivators who successfully transcend the tribulation. Celestial Maiden Tion Show finally understood what the Celestial Arch was saying. This was actually a psychological suggestion. Refund all the spirit stones if the tribulation fails. Very reliable. In reality, Enlin's skill level hadn't actually changed. What he wanted to earn was the money of the cultivators who successfully transcended the tribulation. He could also use this slogan to attract a large number of soul formation stage cultivators, which would serve as an excellent promotional tool. Compared to collecting money from 10 divine transformation stage cultivators, he might be able to collect money from 50 divine transformation stage cultivators out of 100 who had successfully passed the heavenly tribulations. This was undoubtedly a brilliant move. Celestial Maiden Tion Show's eyes lit up, and she looked at the man with glowing eyes. "Mr. Enlin, you're so smart." Enlin smiled lightly. "Don't blame me for that. Mr. Enlin sure is straightforward." The Celestial Arch chuckled with a gratified expression. "Now, let's talk about the Celestial Court's remuneration. I'm not asking for much. I'll just take 10% of your income." Enlin's eyes widened. "You're asking for remuneration as well?" This was something that would benefit the entire world. Wasn't the Celestial Arch supposed to save the world? Shouldn't he be silently contributing at a time like this? The Celestial Arch chuckled. "Didn't I tell you before, Mr. Enlin? If you want to obtain something, you have to give something in return. Nothing can be taken for granted. I recall that you were extremely supportive of what I said at the time." Enlin's lips twitched upon hearing this. *T. He was wondering why the Celestial Arch was so easygoing. He had fallen into a trap. The Celestial Court wants to help Enlin advertise and vouch for your strength, which will require a lot of manpower and resources. There's also a risk to their reputation, so it's not too much to ask for some remuneration, right? The Celestial Arch was still smiling as he spoke. However, even though Enlin's heart was throbbing with pain, he couldn't refuse this offer. "All right, deal." Enlin gritted his teeth before agreeing. This would actually increase his relationship with the Celestial Court, and the Celestial Court would also protect him. "Ha ha, Mr. Enlin, you're quite a straightforward person. I'll go and make arrangements right now. Just wait to pick up the money," the Celestial Arch said with a joyful expression. Enlin's lips twitched upon hearing this. He still had to work tirelessly to control the tribulation lightning, but spreading the news would only be a matter of time. After word of mouth had spread, there would be no need to advertise anymore. At that time, the Celestial Court would be the one waiting to pick up the money. Chapter 911. A day later, a piece of news came from the Celestial Court. The content of the news was very short, but it spread like wildfire across the entire continent. In an instant, it shook the entire continent. There was a cultivator named Enlin in the Celestial Court who could control the heavenly thunder and increase the success rate of heavenly tribulations. It was supposed to be a fantasy story, but with the guarantee of the reputation of the Celestial Court and the image displayed by the photographic crystal, there was a high possibility that it was true. Without a doubt, this matter was of epoch-making significance to the entire continent. It could greatly increase the strength of the various forces. Generally speaking, a new return to void stage mighty figure would be born in the Kingdom of the Nine States every 100 years or so. However, the number of experts at the pinnacle of the divine transformation stage who had the strength to undergo the heavenly tribulation was far more than this number. There might be more than a dozen of them. If they could drastically increase the success rate of tribulation transcendence, then the number of return to void stage mighty figures in a force would skyrocket to a terrifying level. Regardless of whether it was to the individual living beings or the forces as a whole, the news released by the Celestial Court was an earth-shattering piece of news. It was a piece of news that was enough to topple the structure of the entire continent. In the West, golden light shrouded the area, and 7-colored auspicious clouds floated above the land of bliss. A bodhisattva was sitting cross-legged on a lotus flower. The divine light of wisdom had transformed into a pure golden-white flame that enveloped his entire body. He was looking at the little Buddha in front of him with a smile. This bodhisattva was one of the 3 sages of the West, the Mahastamaprapta Bodhisattva. He was as famous as Amitabha in Guanyin Bodhisattva. He had reached great heights in the path of light and wisdom. Wherever he went, the heavens and earth would resonate with him, and all living things would come to life. He also had the power to purify all evil. Qingji, you've already traveled all over the myriad Buddha mountain and obtained the sacred Bodhi heart. You can now break through to the return to void stage. Why don't you take this opportunity to meet an old friend? The great strength Bodhisattva's voice was clear and ethereal. The man in front of him put his palms together and bowed. I will obey Master's orders. Never in his wildest dreams would Qingji have imagined that Enlin, who had competed with him many years ago, would actually possess the power to influence the entire continent. Even he had to seek Enlin's help to make his own breakthroughs. Sigh, 1.5 million spirit stones. I'm going bankrupt, no? He had to borrow 1 million spirit stones from his master before he could raise enough money. It would be more accurate to say that he was deeply in debt on the black moving continent, the Darkwing race's base. Hey, have you heard? Enlin actually has the power to increase the success rate of passing tribulations. Gasp. As expected of someone that even the monarchs are extremely fearful of, he's too terrifying. I feel so sad and lost. Why do we have to be enemies with the humans? How nice it would be if they could develop amicably and peacefully. I've been stuck at the peak of the soul formation stage for more than 1,000 years because I'm afraid of death. I really want to ask Enlin for help. Sob, sob, sob. This wasn't just happening in the Darkwing tribe. The Dark Marshlands, the True Demon tribe, the Snow Maidens, the West Sea Monster tribe, and other hostile forces were all staring at the Celestial Court in the east with bloodshot eyes. They hated him so much. Why did such a monster appear in the Celestial Court? This was not fair, and it was not in line with cultivation. As for the non-hostile forces, they were naturally overjoyed. Many experts at the peak of the soul formation stage had already begun to borrow money from all over the place, preparing to head to the Celestial Court. Money could be slowly earned back, but life would be gone if it was gone. They definitely didn't want to give up on this opportunity to increase their chances of success in tribulation transcendence. Furthermore, if they failed their tribulation transcendence, all of the spirit stones would be returned to them, and they would be able to repay the money they had borrowed. So why not? It had to be said that Enlin's promise of a refund for failure of tribulation transcendence really moved all of the cultivators who were about to transcend their tribulations. Enlin's name once again rocked the entire continent. Many first-rate mighty figures couldn't help but turn their eyes toward the Celestial Court. The last time his name had rocked the entire continent was when he established the 4-9 Immortal sect as the sect leader. This time, it was even more exaggerated. In particular, many of the soul formation stage cultivators who were about to transcend their tribulations only wanted to yell, Enlin, Daddy, Daddy. Take me with you. Enlin arrived at a vast Tao Plaza. The Tao Plaza was a circular, floating stone altar surrounded by a blue sky and white clouds. This was the Tao Plaza for the immortals of the Celestial Court, the heaven-defying Tao Plaza. The materials used to construct the heaven-defying Tao Plaza were extremely sturdy and could withstand the might of golden void lightning without breaking. As such, the Celestial Court had set this place as the location for all living beings on the continent to transcend their tribulations. Enlin's money-making plan had already been decided. In this year, there would be at least 10 cultivators at the pinnacle of the soul formation stage who could transcend their tribulations. Right? There were also many cultivators who had been holding back their cultivation bases, and they definitely couldn't hold back anymore. In that case, there would definitely be even more. A conservative estimate would be around 60 to 70, right? Discounting some enemies who were unwilling to part with the money, as well as those who were too proud to help, There should be around 30 to 40 of them. 1,500,000 spirit stones for each cultivator was definitely a huge fortune. Of course, there were also hidden riches, such as fame, as well as the good karma he had formed with a few dozen new return to void stage mighty figures. In any case, this was a very profitable business. And Lin leisurely waited for the fated person at the heaven-defying Dao Plaza, and he would go to the restaurant to make some money in the evening. The next day, 2 cultivators from the Kingdom of the Nine States arrived at the heaven-defying Dao Plaza. One was an expert from the Dark Wind Imperial family of the Wind Plains State, and the other was a rogue cultivator. They greeted Enlin warmly and then sat down at the side. They didn't say anything about the tribulation, obviously waiting for something. Enlin knew that they were waiting for the first person to ask him for help. After all, there were some things that could not be confirmed without personally witnessing it. Who would be the first warrior? Enlin was in no hurry. Someone would do it sooner or later. Soon, powerful beings at the soul formation pinnacle stage arrived from the Garden of Eden, the Hall of Creation, the Dragon Court of the Eastern Seas, the North Song Mountain Realm, and the Spirit Lake Realm. In the Spirit Lake Realm snake spirit race, there was also a snake woman with a pure appearance and an extremely alluring figure. She asked in a small voice if she could pay with her body because she didn't have enough money. Enlin naturally refused with righteous words. He was not interested in this kind of transaction at all. He only wanted to get rich. That's right, he was a righteous gentleman. 5 days later, there were already over 20 cultivators at the soul formation pinnacle stage gathered at the heaven-defying Dao Plaza. However, all of them were extremely cowardly and didn't want to be the first to go up. Oh, right, there were also over 100 family members and friends. They all stood in the distance and looked at the tribulation transcenders with worried expressions. Enlin was a little exasperated. Was tribulation transcendence really that scary? Ba, benefactor Enlin, long time no see. At this moment, a monk with delicate features arrived on a cloud. Enlin was elated. Long time no see, fellow Taoist Qing Ji. I didn't think that your cultivation base would progress so quickly. I just had some miraculous encounters. Qing Ji put his palms together, and his tone became even more calm and ethereal. What kind of miraculous encounter? Enlin was a little curious. Qing Ji's cultivation base had progressed from half-step soul formation pinnacle stage to half-step soul formation pinnacle stage in 2 years. This was probably the fastest speed among all the prodigies during the Tao Exchange Conference of the Four Powers. Of course, this was excluding Enlin first. Qing Ji closed his eyes and bowed slightly. The Buddha says, I cannot say. Enlin's face convulsed slightly. The Buddha says you can't say it, so you won't say it? Are you really that obedient? Qing Ji. What did this have to do with being obedient? Before Qing Ji had a chance to speak, Enlin continued, Are you also here to transcend your tribulation, fellow Taoist Qing Ji? Qing Ji recovered and nodded. That's right. Do we have to line up? There are already so many people waiting here. Enlin waved a hand. You're my friend, so you have priority. I'll let you go first. Qing Ji was a little hesitant. That's not a good idea, is it? What's not a good idea? I call the shots here. Enlin waved a hand in a very heroic manner. Ba, then I thank benefactor Enlin. Qing Ji wasn't a pretentious person, and he put his palms together in gratitude. All the spectating cultivators at soul formation pinnacle stage, a thought suddenly surfaced in their minds. This was probably what it meant to kill one's acquaintance, right? Just like that, Qing Ji became the first person to transcend his tribulation. Chapter 9:12. The 26 powerful beings at the soul formation pinnacle stage were all looking at Qing Ji with a hint of respect in their eyes, as if they were looking at a brave warrior who was about to be executed. Benefactor Enlin, why do I feel like everyone else is looking at me strangely? Qing Ji looked around with a confused expression. Perhaps they're jealous, Enlin replied in an honest manner. My apologies, my apologies. Qing Ji was a little embarrassed. Soon, Qing Ji sat down at the center of the heaven-defying Dao Plaza. Vital energy instantly surged for over 50 kilometers as soon as he sat down. Enlin clicked his tongue in wonder. Just how long had he been holding it in? It broke through as soon as he sat down. Dark clouds began to gather in the sky as golden void lightning began to gather. Boom! A bolt of golden lightning fell from the sky, striking Qing Ji's bald head and sending a golden shockwave crashing into it. Qing Ji sat cross-legged on the ground with his palms pressed together. A layer of golden Buddhist light enshrouded his body, giving him an indestructible body that allowed him to withstand the first bolt of lightning unscathed. All of the powerful beings below the platform let loose cries of surprise. What powerful defensive prowess! And Lin's eyes narrowed. The more powerful the tribulation transcendence, the more fearsome the tribulation lightning would be. This was why so many exceptional prodigies perished during their tribulation transcendence. As one bolt of powerful golden void lightning after another fell, Qing Ji's golden Buddhist light barrier finally showed signs of cracking. When the 78th bolt of divine lightning fell, Qing Ji's golden Buddhist light barrier had already been broken. When the 79th bolt of divine lightning fell, Qing Ji's bald head was charred black. All of the soul formation stage powerful beings stared at Qing Ji with nervous expressions. There were only 2 bolts of divine lightning left before the tribulation was over. However, it was quite clear that Qing Ji was already showing signs of collapsing. Right at this moment, the 80th bolt of golden void lightning broke through the void and fell from the sky. The golden divine lightning was like a divine sword, tearing through the void and slowly descending, dyeing heaven and earth a pure golden color. Wait, something doesn't seem right. Slowly descending? The 20 or so soul formation stage cultivators all faltered at the sight of the divine lightning. Then, they all turned to look at Enlin, only to see Enlin's fingertips flickering with lightning as he stared at the falling golden lightning with a solemn expression. Gosh, it turns out that Enlin really has the power to control the lightning tribulation. Seeing once is better than hearing 100 times. There is actually such an extraordinary man in this world. To be able to control even the heavenly lightning tribulation, I don't even know what to say anymore. Although these cultivators at the pinnacle of the soul formation stage were mentally prepared, they were still deeply shocked by the scene before them. Qing Ji also tilted his head slightly as he shot a grateful glance at Enlin. At this moment, the golden lightning had already begun to descend. Qing Ji let loose a loud roar as he unleashed all of his power to defend himself. Golden light erupted forth, and Buddhist chants rang out as spatial ripples surged forth in all directions like a tidal wave. An extremely dazzling explosion of energy erupted, and Qing Ji finally withstood the 80th bolt of divine lightning. The final bolt of golden void lightning fell, tearing through the heavens with devastating might. However, it was still slowed down to a snail by Lin's lightning manipulation technique. Rumble, golden lightning exploded, lighting up the entire world. Qing Ji let loose a loud roar as he defended himself. Even though he was already in a sorry state, his eyes were bright, his aura was vast, and there was a smile on his face. It was clear that he had successfully made his breakthrough. Rumbling booms erupted in the sky as the muffled thunderclaps finally dissipated. All of the living beings on the heaven-defying Tao Plaza applauded and cheered for the birth of a new return to Void Stage mighty figure. At the same time, they were also celebrating for themselves. That's right. After witnessing Lin's power, they realized that this tribulation transcendence could be considered a success. Qing Ji swallowed an immortal pill to stabilize his cultivation base before making his way toward Enlin and bowing respectfully again. Thank you, benefactor Enlin. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been able to survive this tribulation lightning. Enlin waved a hand with a smile. There's no need to thank me, fellow Taoist Qing Ji. You're very powerful to begin with, and it's only my duty to do so. After a brief exchange of pleasantries, all of the other powerful beings at the soul formation pinnacle stage couldn't help but make their way toward Enlin and offer him money. Enlin accepted the money with a smile. 1,500,000 spirit stones per person. Over 10,000 meters away, atop a certain cloud. The celestial arch looked on with a gratified expression. Mr. and Lin really didn't disappoint me. This lightning manipulation technique is extremely compatible with the great Tao of heaven and earth. Only supremely talented prodigies and extraordinary cultivators can possess this technique. Celestial Maiden Tian Shou was still in a daze, and she stared at the white-robed man in the distance as if she was trying to see through him. In Tian Shou's eyes, it was simply unimaginable that the paramount divine lightning could be controlled by Cultivator. And Lin rested for a while before helping another powerful being at the soul formation pinnacle stage transcend their tribulation. There weren't any standards. In any case, whoever he liked would go first. Thus, the beautiful and sexy snake woman successfully transcended her tribulation. She didn't forget to give Lin a big hug after successfully transcending her tribulation. Hugs from people with great figures were also very pleasing to the touch. Just as she was about to give Lin another loving kiss, and Lin slapped her hand away. "Humph. You want to seduce me? A handsome man with a boundless future ahead of him? Forget about it." And Lin scolded mercilessly. He knew that the snake woman's love for him wasn't pure. The snake woman was only interested in his peerless strength, peerless aptitude, the potential to become a super tycoon in the cultivation world, and his undeniably good-looking body. In any case, she didn't love his soul, so he decisively rejected her. Outstanding people always had a lot to worry about. He rested for a while, mainly to let Kieran rest. After all, Kieran's arm would also be sore if he had to point his finger at the sky. An hour later, Lin finally began helping the third soul formation stage powerful being transcend their tribulation. The third powerful being at the soul formation pinnacle stage was a tree spirit from the Hall of Creation. Unfortunately, this tree spirit was far too weak. Even though Lin had used his lightning manipulation technique to slow it down, it was still blasted to death by the 79th bolt of golden void lightning. The family members that came with it were crying like a tree of tears. They were extremely sad, and Lin was also extremely sad, and he silently handed over the 1.5 million spirit stones in his pocket to the family members. He had no choice. He had made a promise, so he had to fulfill it. The family members who received the spirit stones were a little less sad, and they only wiped away their tears without blaming Lin for anything. They weren't idiots to that extent. The tree spirit was clearly too weak, so why would they make things difficult for someone who was helping it transcend its tribulation? After that, the tribulation transcendence continued. In the end, 3 days later, a total of 27 powerful beings at the soul formation pinnacle stage, including Qing Ji, had successfully transcended their tribulations, and 12 of them had become new return to void stage mighty figures. One had to realize that in the past, it would already be quite fortunate if only 2 of the 27 powerful beings at the soul formation pinnacle stage had successfully transcended their tribulations. However, Lin's assistance had increased the probability by 6 times. Even the celestial arch was moved by this. The world is finally changing. The celestial arch murmured to himself. The 12 new return to void stage mighty figures were all extremely grateful toward Lin, and some of them were even referring to him as brothers. These were all his connections, and Lin was very happy to be friends with them. Soon, the news that 12 of the 27 powerful beings at the soul formation pinnacle stage had successfully transcended their tribulations with Lin's assistance swept through the entire continent like a hurricane. The entire continent was in an uproar once again. In the past, there had been no direct data to demonstrate Lin's power, so some powerful beings were able to remain calm and collected. But now, his terrifyingly high tribulation transcendence success rate drove all of the soul formation stage mighty figures into a frenzy of reverence, yearning, fanaticism. It was undoubtedly the case that Lin's lightning manipulation abilities were beyond doubt. Countless cultivators remembered this man, and some of them had even been saving up money since they were at the spirit nurturing stage, so that they could ask Lin to help them once they reached the soul formation pinnacle stage. There was a very good chance that they would survive, so who the F*** CK wanted to die? At the same time, Enlin also received a new title. This was a title that was acknowledged by all-powerful beings on the entire continent, the Lord of Transcendence. That's right, this was a mighty figure who brought hope to countless powerful beings at the soul formation pinnacle stage. The Lord of Transcendence, Enlin. Chapter 9:13. Enlin faltered slightly upon learning of his new title. He didn't think that he would have such a proper title. Lord of Transcendence? That sounded like a very benevolent title. However, he didn't pay much attention to it. After all, he had many other titles. It didn't matter if he had one more or one less. To outsiders, he was still going to refer to himself as Enlin, Sword Immortal. Titles really didn't matter to him. He stroked his storage ring and smiled contentedly. 12 powerful beings at the soul formation pinnacle stage had successfully transcended their tribulations, and he had earned 18 million spirit stones just from controlling lightning. That included the 2 months he had spent as a chef and the 10 million spirit stones from Tina's spirit mine. His total assets now amounted to 40 million spirit stones. What a huge fortune! And Lin looked up into the sky and sighed with emotion. He was probably the most wealthy person on the entire continent to have made so much money in such a short time. The rate of earning money from now on wasn't as monstrous anymore. After all, he had already expended all of his potential to help the powerful beings at the soul formation pinnacle stage transcend their tribulations. There were only so many powerful beings on the entire continent who had yet to transcend their tribulations, and it just so happened that they were at the soul formation pinnacle stage. As for cooking, it was also stable at around 200,000 spirit stones a day. At this rate, it wouldn't be a dream for him to collect 100 million spirit stones in 10 months. The following days became a very leisurely affair. Enlin's status in university was extremely high, and he was quite a renowned figure even across the entire continent, let alone the Kingdom of the Nine States. All of the students and teachers heard about Enlin from time to time, especially the most recent ones. A few days later, another female cultivator at the soul formation pinnacle stage arrived. Her Dao title was Kong Zuexiang, and her features were as beautiful as a painting. Her skin was as fair as snow, and her silky hair hung down to her slender waist. She held onto Enlin's hand tightly and confessed that she didn't have much confidence in her tribulation transcendence, and she begged Enlin to help her transcend her tribulation. Enlin patted his chest and promised that his title as the Lord of Transcendence was not just for show. Mr. Enlin, I believe in you, and I'll definitely do my best. There was a hint of determination in Kong Zuexiang's eyes, and her face was a little pale, making her appear quite feeble. Don't worry, fellow Taoist Kong Zuexiang. Leave everything to me, Enlin said confidently. The female cultivator was then blasted to death by the golden void lightning. She didn't even survive 70 bolts of golden void lightning before perishing, breaking Enlin's record for the lowest tribulation transcendence record. Enlin looked at the charred woman in front of him and fell into a long silence. He suddenly felt that the 1.5 million spirit stones in his storage ring were a bit scalding. Prior to her tribulation transcendence, Kong Zuexiang had told Enlin with a smile that she had sold all of her belongings to gather the spirit stones, so she had nowhere else to go. She was just an itinerant cultivator with no family or friends. She was all alone on the long path of seeking Tao. However, this journey had finally come to an end. In the end, she perished under the tribulation lightning and left no trace in this world. Enlin, I don't know who I'm going to give these spirit stones to, so I'll give them all to you. Thank you for risking your life for me in the final moments of my life. I'm too disappointing. Kong Zuexiang looked at Enlin with a smile as blood trickled down the corners of her lips. The golden void lightning fell very slowly, but her consciousness was quickly crumbling, and her Tao foundation was also completely shattered. Enlin had unleashed all of his power, including the origin energy of the netherworld, but he was still unable to help her transcend her tribulation lightning. Failing a tribulation transcendence was a very normal thing to do. However, Kong Zuexiang's eyes were too lonely, as if she had drifted away from this world. It was as if she knew that she was most likely going to die, but she still chose to transcend her tribulation without any hesitation. Her eyes were filled with stubbornness and flames that refused to extinguish even until the very last moment. She worked very hard, but reality was very cruel, and she could only leave this world with extreme regret. And Lin silently picked up Kong Zuexiang's body and descended to the ground. He found a beautiful mountain to bury her before picking up a bouquet of flowers and placing it in front of the grave. She had failed her tribulation transcendence and couldn't even find someone to bury her. This had broken Lin's record, so he could only add a free after-sale service. The wind blew past the mountain, carrying with it white flower petals and a fragrant scent. The environment was very pleasant, with birds chirping and birds chirping. It was beautiful, but also a little lonely. And Lin looked at the tombstone with his Dao name engraved on it and closed his eyes. He took a deep breath and said in a soft voice, "Rest in peace, Ms. Kong Zuexiang." He bowed again as he spoke before rising into the air and returning to the celestial court. And Lin silently refined a pink storage ring. Kong Zuexiang had told him that all the money was in the storage ring. Sure enough, 150 vital stones were neatly arranged within the storage ring, all of which exuded powerful energy fluctuations. Why are there 2 books? He raised an eyebrow and pulled out a book with the words Sky Tempering True Technique written on its cover. And Lin flipped through it curiously and confirmed that this was a cultivation method invented by Kong Zuexiang. It was suitable for women with agile movement techniques, and it could allow one to observe the true essence of qi manipulation. It was a good cultivation method for the 4-9 immortal sect. You can still leave some traces in this world. Perhaps your cultivation method will be promoted by the 4-9 immortal sect. You'll be considered a founding father then. And Lin smiled as he stowed the cultivation method away. He pulled out another book. The cover was a faint yellow color with no words on it, making it appear quite plain and simple. And Lin thought to himself, "It's so low-key. Could it be that it's an extremely profound mystic technique?" He flipped to the first page and was immediately dumbstruck. Tai Chu Heaven Sealing Era 8581, 5th month, 20th day. I've finally broken through to the spirit nurturing stage. I'm so happy. From now on, I'll record everything in my life. Tai Chu Heaven Sealing Era 8581, 5th month, 21st day. Cultivating diligently on the West Crane Mountain. Tai Chu Calendar, Heaven Sealing Era 8581, 5th month, 22nd day. Today, he was diligently cultivating at West Crane Mountain. Tai Chu Calendar, Heaven Sealing Era 8582, March 6th. Today, he was diligently cultivating at West Crane Mountain. It seems like I've missed many days of diary entries. I've been too engrossed in cultivation. I even missed my birthday. February 1st is my birthday. I wish myself a happy 30th birthday. He said that he would record every bit of cultivation, and he would never forget it again. Tai Chu Calendar, Heaven Sealing Era 8582, March 7th. Today, he was diligently cultivating at West Crane Mountain. 10,000 words have been omitted above. Tai Chu Epic Year 8583, 6th month, 8th day. He had successfully broken through to the spirit nurturing intermediate stage. He felt like his aptitude was quite good, so he decided to go for a walk. The salt and pepper roast duck in Dragon Gate City was delicious, and the osmanthus cake in West Street was not bad either. On the 9th day of the 6th month in the 85-83 year of the Grand Beginning Era, 2 blind male cultivators plotted against me and tried to rob me. They were killed by me. Sure enough, people without IQ were everywhere. To me, this world is always cruel. I have no family. I've been betrayed by my friends, and even my master is unwilling to take me in. However, that doesn't matter. The only thing I can do now is to continue cultivating until I get my revenge. Then, this world will have no meaning to me. And Lin looked at the diary entries in the book. The contents were dull and uninteresting, and they were all very boring cultivation matters. It was not a fortuitous encounter type of cultivation. Instead, it was a cultivation method of meditation. However, for some reason, Enlin's interest was piqued. Perhaps he was attracted by the word revenge? This was like a trap that attracted Enlin, making him want to dig out the truth behind it. Enlin did not choose to continue reading. Instead, he silently put the diary away. He was still a man of integrity. How could he read someone else's diary in broad daylight? This kind of thing should be read secretly at night. Chapter 9:14. Taichu calendar year 8586, December 8th, 8th day of the 12th month. I came to the Baihua State to train, and I saw a large field of rape flowers. The entire ground was covered in golden flowers, creating a spectacular sight. It really is very beautiful. I remember that my little sister loved rape flowers the most when she was alive. If only she could be by my side and enjoy this beautiful scenery with me. The candlelight flickered, and Enlin's heart convulsed upon seeing this as he lay on his bed. He felt as if he could envision a woman with tears streaming down her face as she looked at the vast field of rape flowers. After reading so many diary entries, Enlin knew how Kong Zuexiang's little sister had died. She had been killed by Duan Yong of the Xianqing sect. Duan Yong was a core disciple of a righteous sect, and he had killed Kong Zuexiang's uncle and her entire family when he left the sect to carry out mission. Kong Zuexiang's uncle was indeed working for the demonic sect, but the rest of her family had nothing to do with the demonic sect. However, Duan Yong still killed all 28 members of her family and claimed that he had eradicated all of them. Kong Zuexiang's little sister bore a striking resemblance to her, but Duan Yong had sexually assaulted her and raped her to death. Kong Zuexiang only found out about all of this from the spiritual message her little sister had left on her storage ring before her death. She returned to the sect in a frenzy and begged her master to uphold justice for her. However, the Xianqing sect was a colossus in the region, and a medium-sized sect had no room to bargain with them without sufficient evidence. The spiritual message on the storage ring had already disappeared, so Kong Zuexiang couldn't produce any evidence. No one believed her, and no one believed that a core disciple of a righteous sect would do such a despicable thing. Not only that, but her master even persuaded her to go to the Xianqing sect to prove to Duan Yong that she had nothing to do with her uncle and the demonic sect. Bowed down to the demons who had killed her entire family and raped her little sister. At that moment, Kong Zuexiang completely despaired of this world. No one was willing to believe her, and no one chose to help her. Even though Duan Yong had committed such a heinous crime, he was still living a carefree life, and no one dared to punish him. Kong Zuexiang gave up on her sect and left on her own. She didn't lose her mind and rushed to the Xianqing sect to fight to the death. She was very calm. She knew that she would only be humiliating herself if she went. So, she chose to endure silently and rely on herself to cultivate diligently. Once her strength surpassed Duan Yong, she would look for an opportunity to slice him into pieces. Fortunately, her aptitude was not low, and her realm was rapidly increasing. But reality was not a novel. Villains don't stay put and wait for you to take revenge. Duan Yong's aptitude was not low either, and his realm had also advanced by leaps and bounds. Kong Zuexiang had finally reached the spirit-nurturing stage, but Duan Yong was already at the spirit-nurturing pinnacle stage. Kong Zuexiang was only at the spirit-nurturing pinnacle stage, while Duan Yong was already a soul formation stage powerful being and an elder of the Xianqing sect. Duan Yong was getting stronger and stronger, and the forces he could control were getting more and more terrifying. Kong Zuexiang was chasing after him in a frenzy, but she was fighting on her own, and the gap between them was only widening. Enlin knew from her diary that Kong Zuexiang was actually a foodie. Aside from cultivation, her only hobby was to taste all types of delicious food, which she would comment on in her diary. However, when she realized that the gap between her and Duan Yong was only widening, she gave up everything and began to cultivate in a frenzy. She even gave up on her little hobby. It was as if she had completely separated herself from this world. In the end, Kong Zuexiang progressed to the soul formation stage, while Duanyong was only at the soul formation intermediate stage. She knew that this was her last chance. Duanyong's aptitude was about the same as hers, so she had to pay a heavy price in order to catch up to Duanyong. Otherwise, she would always be one step behind. Thus, she began to take pills in a frenzy and use mystic techniques to speed up her cultivation base. However, the price she had to pay was that her foundation would be damaged and her cultivation base would become unstable. Kong Zuexiang had already gone insane, and she couldn't delay any longer. She had to take this opportunity to increase her cultivation base and power at all costs, so that she could surpass Duanyong and kill him. In the end, when Duanyong reached the soul formation pinnacle stage, Kong Zuexiang also reached the soul formation pinnacle stage. On the plateau at the border of the Baihua state, Kong Zuexiang found an opportunity to ambush Duanyong. She had thought that she would at least be able to take Duanyong down with her. However, she had underestimated Duanyong, who had countless trump cards up his sleeves. At the time, Duanyong had admitted to his crimes with an arrogant smile after learning of Kong Zuexiang's identity. "That's right. I killed your entire family. Your little sister really is a stunner. I can't forget her scent even now. I really regret killing her. I should have kept her captive so that I could continue to enjoy her. What can you do to me? I'm an elder of the Xianqing sect, a renowned sect. You have no proof, so who would believe the words of an itinerant cultivator like you? Ha ha! Heaven has eyes. You look even better than your sister. Since you took the initiative to send yourself to me, I won't hold back then." Kong Zuexiang was completely enraged, and she gave up everything to fight Duanyong with all her might, but she was still no match for him. She began to flee in defeat. The disparity in power between the two of them wasn't very large, so Duanyong was unable to catch up to her. That day, she had written this diary entry with tears of blood in her eyes. Lin flipped through the yellowed pages, which were wrinkled from her tears, and there were even a few drops of blood at the end of the page. Kong Zuexiang wasn't going to give up until she had exacted her revenge. She was planning to continue accumulating power for another round of assassination. However, another piece of news soon arrived. Duanyong had broken through to the Return to Void stage and was about to become the sect leader of the Xianqing sect. Due to his breakthrough, the Xianqing sect had become one of the most powerful sects in the Baihua state. Kong Zuexiang was in despair upon hearing this news. Why was it that I was still unable to kill that evil man, even after working so hard and risking my life? Why couldn't the heavens give me a chance? Both of us are still at the soul formation pinnacle stage, so I still have a chance to kill Duanyong. However, the disparity between the soul formation stage and the return to void stage was like a chasm. So how was I supposed to defeat him? With my current body, I would most likely perish if I try to transcend my tribulation to the return to void stage. So be it. If this is the will of the heavens, then I'm going to the Xianqing sect to die on the day of the sect leader handover. Taichu Epic 10576, 5th month, 8th day. I heard that there's an extraordinary man in the celestial court by the name of Lin who possesses the power to drastically increase the success rate of tribulation transcendence. Has the heavens finally opened their eyes? This is my only hope. He might be able to help me. It's just that I don't have enough spirit stones, and I don't have any friends I can borrow money from. Drunken Dream Sword, who has accompanied me for many years, I'm sorry. Please forgive me for my stubbornness and leave me for a while. Taichu Epic 10576, 5th month, 12th month. I'm going to see Lin today. Come to think of it, all of his legendary feats are quite astonishing. He's so young, yet he's already unfathomably powerful. If only I had his aptitude. Such an extraordinary man must have a way for me to successfully transcend my tribulation, right? I haven't interacted with anyone in a long time. I hope he won't turn his back on me, a woman who's not very sociable. I hope everything goes smoothly. Wish me luck. The diary ended here. What followed was an empty page, and Lin closed the diary, and the image of a delicate and beautiful woman appeared in his mind. He recalled how she had grabbed onto Lin's hand tightly with her slender hands and told him that she didn't have any confidence in her tribulation transcendence and that she hoped Lin would be able to help her. The memory of that innocent girl who didn't really know how to speak was still fresh in his mind. And Lin could still remember what she had said to him as blood trickled down the corners of her lips. And Lin, I don't know who to give these spirit stones to, so I'll give them all to you. Thank you for risking your life for me in the final moments of my life. It's all my fault. Kong Zuexiang had died, but the stubbornness and flames in her eyes had been engraved into Lin's heart. Ha! What a silly girl. The candlelight was still flickering, and Lin was getting a little tired, so he slowly closed his eyes. Outside the dorm room, the sky was filled with stars, and the moonlight was like water. Everything was so tranquil, as if it were a silent world. A man's voice sounded faintly. Kong Zuexiang, who says no one believes you. The diary you wrote is your proof. I believe you.